Berg.
Here.
Crary.
Here.
Friedos.
Here.
Holf. Ozowski.
Here.
Whitney.
Here.
Wolf.
Here.
We have a quorum.
I move approval.
Second. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Chairman Friedos, members of the Growth Fund Committee, Kevin Hatcher, Business Development Manager at the Grand Forks Region EDC. Speaking on this PACE loan request of $88,011. We're fortunate to have Mr. Corley Melland and CFO, President of the company, along with Scott Berge, CFO, readily available for any questions. I'll even invite Mr. Melland up after I give the background and the PACE detail here. So getting into the background here, PS Industries Incorporated, Grand Forks started Grand Forks-based manufacturing company of industrial doors, safety and fall protection products, and flood protection barriers, and unforeseen risk mitigation projects. At their facility, that includes design, manufacturing these products, engineering these products, all on that one roof. Since they began, Grand Forks, since 1974, congratulations to the company, 50 years strong here in the Grand Forks region here. They've grown significantly over the years, utilizing this PACE program historically, including recently in 2019, expanding their footprint from 104,000 to now 180,000 square feet out in that industrial park. For this project in particular, they're expanding its flood protection market, acquiring a Miami-based company, Flood Barrier Inc., who has 20 years of experience in flood prevention. This will help PS Industries capture critical flood protection market, specifically in the South Florida area. As I'm sure you all may know, plenty of hurricanes and flood utilizing their product there, exposed to tropical storms. The acquisition will bring products to PS Industries here in Grand Forks, adding on to their existing flood barrier lineup in Grand Forks, resulting in an increase in manufacturing production at that facility there. Absorbing call it FBI's current contracted orders with an opportunity to accommodate future growth. Particular for this project, it consists of purchasing the company's business assets related to that flexible flood barrier product line, including their product patent, IP, manufacturing equipment, and inventory for the upcoming contracted orders. Getting into PACE details before I invite Mr. Mellon up here, we have a total project of $3,068,000. We're utilizing the PACE program to buy the interest rate down from 7.25% to 3.5%, and that's through a Choice Bank note of $2,454,400, and that's for the acquisition of the business assets of Flood Barrier Inc. Owners of the company are contributing an equity portion of $613,600. As I mentioned earlier, the loan request here locally is for PACE of $88,011, and that's going to leverage Bank of North Dakota's grant portion of $163,449. This loan payment, it'll be deferred for 60 months, and then after that 60-month period, it'll follow with 12 equal monthly installments for for payback. And the security behind the loan, it's a subordinate blanket UCC on all the business assets for PS Industries, along with personal guarantees from the owners, Daniel Satram and Grant Satram. The loan to value, it's at that healthy note as I have included in that application of 26.23%. And I'll invite Mr. Mellon up here to speak on behalf of the company a little bit.
Hi there, thank you for your time.
This is a great opportunity for PS Industries, and to be honest with you, we had an acquisition 2 years ago that we could have probably used this for. I didn't pick up on the fact that we could use PACE funding for an acquisition. This company that we're purchasing out of Miami, they actually used to be a distributor of ours, like 15 years ago. They bought and resold our products. And then they went out and they kind of developed their own products. And 2 years ago when we bought ILC Dover, we bought their flexible flood barrier product, which is, I don't know if anybody looked at our website, but it's kind of like a shower curtain that you pull across an opening and it gets anchored down, but it's flexible and it holds water back, quite large barriers. And these people out of Miami, Flood Barrier Inc., they also have similar products. And so we're competing against them. And so it worked out great that we were able to put together a deal, add them to us, make us stronger in that flexible flood barrier market. Kevin already alluded to it, the hurricane that just went through Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina. The owner of the company, Guy Hamilton is his name, 20 years of experience in the flood barrier business, is going to be our sales representative in that southeast corner, which, unfortunate for the people that live there, they had a difficult time. Somewhat fortunate for us, it'll allow us to come in and help them create flood protection for their critical infrastructure going forward in the future. And so Guy's in a great position to be that expert and to be that person to be able to go in and help them rebuild, and we can provide products from North Dakota to those areas of the country. We do have excess capacity here right now that we can bring manufacturing from Florida to here. And then the other piece that was kind of a bonus or something that we're looking at and we're doing a trial, you maybe have read, they actually have employees there and they've done installation, and that's been required of them to sell their product in that area because contractors are so busy and so unable to keep up with the labor that they require them to do the installation. And so we're going to do a 6-month trial and see how that installation piece goes, if it's profitable, if it helps us draw product through the market. We would continue that and probably expand that, but we'll see how that works through the end of this year into early next year. Are there any questions I can answer for you on, some people are confused sometimes about PS Industries, PS garage doors. Is there any confusion there? We do not manufacture garage doors. We manufacture totally different products. Josh Grunberg bought PS garage doors from Jim Satram in 2018. And Jim's two sons, Dan and Grant Satram, are now the majority owners. Great guys to work with. They would be here tonight. There was a little building mix-up with Dan, and Grant had to pick his daughter up. So I'm what you get. Is there anything I can answer?
Just real quick, does this result in additional bodies and workforce?
Not at this point. We have spent probably the last 3 years, maybe 4 years, trying to figure out better ways to do things with less people because there have not been people. Right now, we have an excellent group of employees that work for us, and we're very stable. I think we've replaced 2 people in the last 2 years, and so we have a solid workforce, and so we try to leverage them. We try to leverage technology, automation, to use them where we need brains and use something else where we just need, repetition. And so at this point, we're not planning for it. It doesn't mean that capacity won't be stretched and we won't need to.
Congratulations on the acquisition.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Mellon. Are there any questions for Mr. Mellon or Mr. Hatcher?
First, just a matter of procedure, so I have a potential conflict of interest with PS Industries. I'm very familiar with them. And however, as Alaris is not a party to this transaction, I feel I can be objective, and I'm comfortable voting on this and discussing it if the committee is okay with me doing so.
Mr. Gossett's not here, but I'll try to do this based off memory. So I would make a motion to not allow Mr. Wolf to vote. And then we need that to fail. Correct? Okay. All right.
You are correct, and we need a second.
Yep.
I'll second that motion.
All right. So we have a first from Crary, a second
from Miss Whitney.
Oh, is it Whitney on the phone? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yep. To not allow Mr. Wolf to vote. All right. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
And then I'd call for all opposed.
And all opposed? We didn't do
Aye.
that.
Aye.
Aye, yep. Yes,
Mass-
yep,
yeah,
yep, yes, so the
Mr.
mo-
Wolf is-
The motion passes.
Yeah. Mr. Wolf is,
Yes.
is able to now vote on the matter.
Correct, okay.
Well, I just comment, Mr. Mellon, thank you for being here. Thanks for the ongoing investment in the region. This is exciting. I think just looking at the deal here, it's this is the way we should structure these things. This is within our policies and our guidelines. This is the purpose of PACE. This is what we expanded a few years ago just to get into companies like yourself that are headquartered here and trying to grow outside the region. So low loan to value, you've done this before, you've proven that it works. And I'm certainly very much in favor, so thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair Friedhouse? Also, Mr. Mellon, appreciate you coming in. I just want to echo and second everything Mr. Wolf had said. This is, reviewing it, some of these ones make it a little bit easier, you know, when it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty much everything that we designed it to be. I also just, maybe a point of a note, mainly for the general public, is that, you know, because part of it's not adding new jobs right now, right? But it also, part of the purpose of the Growth Fund is for, you know, headquarters to stay here. And although maybe that might not add new jobs right now, and obviously it could for sure long term. But I just think it's worth noting that, you know, you'll still be selling product now around the country. Well, those dollars come headquartered here. And so I think it's a really good point just to make, just for the community's standpoint, to acknowledge that. And of course, it's setting you up too for long-term growth as well. So I just want to really thank you for coming in. Appreciate all you guys do for the community. And I'd make a motion to approve.
Yeah, and to your point, you know, 99.995% of what we do comes from outside of the state of North Dakota, directly to Grand Forks.
I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a motion to approve this PACE loan, first from Curry and a second from Tricia Berg. All right. All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Same sign? This motion passes. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, there's something I'd like to talk about before we adjourn, please.
Yes.
So I have brought this up multiple times at the Growth Fund, at the JDA, and at the City Council. And so today I would like to make a motion that we implement the CFIUS playbook for the Growth Fund. And so I would like it to be part of the packets that are given to companies before they request loans from us. And I have kind of gone through it. It's not that many questions. There is a section that was specifically written for city and county assessment. And it is, I think, 2 questions, and there's a nice workbook at the end that just contains about 6 different questions. And so I would like to motion that the municipal part of the CFIUS playbook be implemented with all Growth Fund applications.
I think we should probably review it prior to doing a vote.
I think, well, I know that Mr. Lund has it, and so and it was given to us by CFIUS, and so I would like to implement that going forward with all packets on the Growth Fund.
Can I ask Mr. Lund if I can, or has that been incorporated at all? Maybe not to the playbook per se, but can you shed some light on what's currently done, and just thoughts?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Curry, Ms. Wasowski could certainly talk about this as well. She's very versed on it. The CFIUS Playbook is a document that was provided by the Air Force's representative to the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, and it's supposed to assist communities, municipal subdivisions, cities, counties, townships, potentially even examine the potential for threat of investment by companies, foreign companies, foreign actors. And there's a series of questions that are held within that are supposed to allow, EDC is the first stop in the process, but really, quite frankly, it's a playbook for cities, counties, and folks that are approving development-related deals. So I think it's fair to say, and when you read the CFIUS playbook, it says probably no less than 10 times that for the foreign purchaser, for the foreign acquirer. So it is a document that is focused exclusively on companies that are domiciled or have foreign ownership interests. They're investing in a community. One of the things, if I may take it another step, one of the things that have changed in Grand Forks in particular, I'm not sure, maybe about a year ago, Grand Forks Air Force Base is now listed on an appendix of CFIUS, whereby it's designated as a highly sensitive base. That might not be the proper words, but the sentiment is the same, whereby foreign investment, I forget the threshold, but it's a very low threshold. If there's foreign investment in any type of development, that would require a formal review by the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. And it is, our collective responsibility to make sure that companies are aware of those requirements. And again, it's their requirement to follow all federal, local, state, and federal laws and guidelines as it relates to their development. So, quite frankly, if a company is, use PS Industries as an example, they're here today. They started in Grand Forks. That's a family business. It's always been American owned, Grand Forks owned for that matter, so that would not actually apply to the CFIUS playbook or the CFIUS regulation. Same with companies that were created and never owned outside of the United States. For companies that have current foreign investment, those are questions that the Air Force's representative suggests that we should ask to try to ascertain whether or not it's a security risk. I think for Grand Forks, sorry, going on a little bit longer than maybe you asked, I think for Grand Forks, the requirement for a full CFIUS review is in place if there is foreign interest. So those checkpoints come into play as this company moves down the process. A little bit, hopefully I was clear.
Yeah, I think so.
Happy to do a follow-up if you'd like.
So, Ms. Wasowski, are you proposing then essentially those initial questions, not everybody has to go through the full questionnaire, essentially if they confirm essentially there's no foreign ownership, then of course the rest is just NA, correct? Like I don't want to create a huge burden on another staff employee to go through a full application if it's not necessary, like a PS Industries. But I do totally support. I mean, we have a very sensitive base. Adding some safeguards in there. I'm just wondering how far is your motion to take it? We don't need like a full CFIUS report, correct? Just more or less if there is foreign ownership.
There's a small section in here, and if you don't have it, I can forward it to you. And it just kind of asks what is the acquired land zoned for? What is the listed value of the property? I mean, I think that this is good information, whether or not we are talking about foreign ownership. I think it gives us a lot more information as a committee to help make these decisions. And I understand what Mr. Lund is saying about, our new 100-mile radius around our Air Force Base, which I think is great. But we have to remember how we got that 100-mile radius put in place in the first place. And that's because we were not doing our due diligence as a community to make sure that these companies were properly vetted. And it has been well over a year now. I've continuously brought it up, and still to this day, when I do ask if any questions were asked about foreign ownership, I'm still being told no a year later. And I want to make sure that we are doing the right thing and we have all this information before we vote on it. So I would suggest, and my motion still stands, that we implement the external local assessment that CFIUS has on their playbook. And I say we use that as a starting point. At least then, we can see how it goes. It's not going to be a perfect process. I understand that. I understand that it may add a little bit of work to Mr. Lund's team, but I think at the end of the day, for us as a community to be able to stand up and say, we did our due diligence in trying to vet these people the best we could, I think that'll go a long way. Because at this point, we went through the whole Fufang debacle, and we haven't changed anything, in the way that we are giving out these PACE loans. Or I, like I said, I'm still getting the answer of no, we didn't vet them from Mr. Lund and the EDC. And so I would like to see that going forward, these questions be answered in the CFIUS playbook.
Mr. Chair, if I could just,
Yes.
real quickly. Just two quick clarification points for folks. So to your point about company ownership, we do ask for that as part of all of our applications. That's it's not summarized in the staff report. It is in the attached application. That's a standard for all of our loan programs, as we do ask for the ownership of, I believe, anyone with, I think it's 10% or more ownership. So you'll see that for PS Industries, on this one, as well as all of our previous loans. You'll see that company ownership piece fleshed out in the actual application, not summarized in the staff report piece. The other piece I'll add, and I'll channel our Robert's Rules nerd in our office, Colin Hansen here, and hopefully I'm right on this, but I believe if we're looking to take action today on something like that, we would either need the board to approve adding that to the agenda, or if I could suggest, to your point, Mr. Chair, of giving the committee an opportunity to review it, if this is something that you would like to evaluate at the next one. Perhaps we could add that to next month's agenda. We could, attach whatever the handbook or the playbook to the materials out to the committee, if that's something that you guys are interested in reviewing at a future meeting and taking action on.
Mr. Chairman, this is Ms. Whitney, if I could add to that from Mr. Conlon.
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Whitney.
Okay, so I was actually going to ask the same question. Thank you, Mr. Conlon. I guess my thought would be, as a committee, given the motion, before we could take action, my thought would be, if we're changing policy on how we do certain things, as a committee, would we not need to see something in advance and be able to review it and look at what we were trying to do? I believe we've done that through the PACE process in the past, as well as with other types of procedural items for the committee. So if this is something that we would be making a decision on, I would recommend that this be put towards a future meeting. That way, as a committee, we have time to review everything and think about all of the implications, such as not only just personnel costs, but another question I would have is, are there other costs outside of additional work that someone would have to do? Do we as a community incur other costs? Those would be questions I think we would want to look at and be able to understand in its entirety before we would make any decisions this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Whitney.
I think, Mr. Chairman, if we could, I think we could then bring it back. And I think we're covered when we have large projects that have development agreements. That's one of the requirements that we have in the development agreement. But I think what Ms. Osowski is concerned about are the routine projects. I think the other thing it's one thing to ask the question, the other thing to have someone answer. But are you going to verify? So I think as part of this process, what is the verification? Are you just going to say, we're just going to trust whatever you say and go on? Or are you going to require further due diligence to ensure that those answers are right? And so I think we could have more discussion on what are you expecting as part of an application process when people answer. Even if they answer no, there's no foreign investment, there's nothing to look at here. Are you going to require the EDC or the City of Grand Forks to do some further follow-up? And then we could even follow up with our Air Force Base with, I know the mayor has followed up with Colonel Monroe on behalf of the Grand Forks Air Force Base, and we could probably get some further input if we put it on the agenda for next month. We could also follow up with the United States Air Force to see if there's any updated materials that they've created that we'd want to follow up with too. So it gives us some opportunities to follow up and then have a deeper discussion.
I guess I would agree to that if something actually gets done. I've been bringing this up for over a year and kindly asking if anybody has done any type of questioning. And so if you want it on next month's agenda, I'm willing to do that, but I would actually like to see it and actually get something approved and move forward, because like I said, it's been well over a year and we are all sitting here in the same spots with nothing changed at all. And I just want to make sure that we are doing what's right by our community and, you know, also by our friendly neighbors at the Grand Forks Air Force Base.
Mr. Chair, I think this is more of a, where we're sitting here at the Growth Fund Committee, it goes on to the JDA, but it's probably more of a Grand Forks issue, not an EDC issue, on how we want to do that. So we'll bring it back next month. And just for you and the public should know, we do take national security concerns seriously. We take anything related to the Grand Forks Air Force Base serious. And you just have to ask the people that we engage with on a day-to-day basis on that, and they'll confirm that we take these things serious in that regards. So we'll be back here with a more robust briefing, and I just want to let you know that we do take these matters seriously.
Thank you, absolutely, and I do understand, and thank you for bringing that forward.
And I withdraw my motion and I move adjournment.
Second?
All right. So, motion to adjourn by Ms. Ozowski, second by Tricia Berg. All in favor, say aye.
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 This meeting is adjourned.
All right, welcome everybody to the Grand Forks City Council meeting, special meeting for Monday, September 30th. If we get a roll call, please, Maureen.
Sure. Weigel.
Here.
Osowski. Here. Berg. Here. Lenski. Here. Friedolfs.
Here.
Sandy.
Here.
Veen.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great to hear. Item 1.2, Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, item 2, discussion items. And before you start, Maureen, I just want to highlight just how important and how incredible it is that we've got these 2 projects coming before the community today. Just couldn't be more grateful for the work that's gotten into it to get to this point. And really excited to see a room full of people that are also passionate about the project. So very excited to see this presentation today and get these projects moving forward. So thank you everyone for being here. Mr. Phelan.
Hey, Mayor Wachinski and members of the City Council. I'm going to start out, and then the consultant team is going to come up here from the various components of the project. Maureen and Mike from Finance are going to talk about some of the financials. Talk a little bit about the O&M, and then Mr. Gostad is going to talk about a couple of the agreements. We're working on one with UND and the other with Park District. And then we thought we'd let the users, and we've had a lot of positive conversations with them. So before I start, I was told today that I want to make a special remark about Jim Freistad. Jim Freistad was a partner in Lunseth Plumbing and Heating and is involved in a lot of good things in Grand Forks, most recently as the Career Impact Academy. Was one of the drivers of that facility, and also was one of the drivers of the all-through indoor sports and aquatic, and specifically aquatics because he and his family had spent many joyous times at competitions in swim, and he passed away over the weekend. And just as important is that Jim had provided earlier this year a $500,000 gift towards the aquatic complex because he really wanted to make sure it went, and it's sad that we're here today on Monday after his passing, but I think what he would tell you today is do the aquatic complex right, and you're probably going to hear this later. He really wanted to see that instructional pool as part of that. He thought that would really complete it and put his money where his thoughts and mind were on that. So I just want to do a big shout out for Jim, thinking of his family and all the great things he did for Grand Forks and the community. I thought we would recap where we're at, and we said this last time we were up here talking. It's pretty incredible that the City Council and the Mayor, we took this project on with Council President Sandy and Mayor Wachinski in the midst of the pandemic, in the midst of Fufang and all the things that we were going through at the time, is that we took this project on, not knowing what the end was. The Park District, they started the feasibility study. We did help cost share as a portion of that. And as you see with this project, we're here this evening, the City of Grand Forks has taken more and more ownership as we have the wherewithal to continue on. That feasibility study did focus on turf, aquatics, and courts. Those were some of the outcomes regarding that. There were some thoughts about what the University of North Dakota was going to do with the Hislop facility, and as we know now, they're providing for over $100 million STEM center. That's going to be pretty exciting in that area. Which means, 9 pickleball courts are going to go away in Hislop, and obviously the Hislop pool that we've gotten a lot of use out of over the years is going away. The thing that we did in June of 2023 to August 2023, we looked at, on behalf of the City of Grand Forks, would it make sense that we combine these facilities on the south end of where the Alaris Center is. So that's one of the shifts that the City of Grand Forks took on, is does it make sense to implement the aquatic complex with the indoor turf with pickleball and any other courts that went. And so really that's where the city shifted it to that. And we've even incorporated a potential children's museum in this location. So that's something where the city has said, should this go on the 42nd Street corridor? The City of Grand Forks rearranged regarding that. The other thing we did between June 2023 and August 2023 is that we were moving with City Council to move this to a sales tax vote, an extension of the Alaris Center tax that would not only take care of the Alaris Center, but also build these new facilities. We reached out to the City of Grand Forks, and we had 3 local architects look at the cost estimate. We had 2 construction managers take a look at, because we really wanted to make sure before we went to the voters that whatever the feasibility study had come up with their professionals, that we had multiple opinions on what this cost estimate would be. So we did receive those 5 additional opinions. And plus or minus, they concurred with the feasibility professionals on what those costs were going to be, because we certainly didn't want to go through, and we learned this from the Alaris Center, we didn't want to ask the voters to approve something and then come back to understand later the cost estimates were much greater than we first anticipated. And I think what numbers you see today is that we are pretty much in the ballpark of what the project that we had thought of back in that day. Again, lots of good news between September and March. Number one, the City Council allowing the voters to move forward with voting on this, and they did approve it overwhelmingly to move forward with it, with the all-true gift of $10 million. And then we started to move forward with architect of record. JLG was selected as our architect. We started schematic design, and we further engage with our users, and you'll have many of them here this evening that we've been engaging with them over the last several months. You're going to hear from McGough tonight as their local partners, construction engineers. We wanted to bring the CMAR on as soon as possible, just so that we could get some further construction estimates, and we've done that along the way. Again, through this summer, or spring and summer, we've done a lot of stakeholder steering group with our users and trying to bring a project back here to the City Council. In August, we were back here talking about the schematic design, and we presented that booklet. We've done a lot of work between August and September to get to 100% schematic design that you're going to see this evening. The other thing that we did do is that we're going to have estimates from McGough and construction engineers from JLG, but we also did hire a third party called Blundell and Associates. So we wanted another third party that hasn't been involved in this project to do a cost estimate. Oliver Finneman from McGough is going to be here to discuss plus or minus. They were pretty close to what their estimate is. Again, we're trying to make sure that all of our due diligence is completed and getting outside opinions, so we don't have any groupthink with our particular team. In September, since we last were in front of you as the City Council, we've done a lot of value analysis, and you can see we've kind of really right-sized the project and cut out about $14.5 million to get a base project that's within our budget. And we've also looked at various additions, whether it's the sports performance or the instructional pool, and we have estimates on those. Here's where we are today. Really where we're at today is right here. And we certainly want to present to you, but also more importantly, get your feedback today, and we move forward. Our thought is that we would bring it to the next City Council for further discussion, and have an opportunity where the City Council would be able to move forward with a kind of a concept design facility that you want to move forward with, and then we'd be able to move forward with final design and ultimately get a GNP, which would be the actual numbers that we would have in front of you that we'd work on. If we started that in October, likely by next spring, we would have the bids come back based upon that final design, and we would be within construction next summer with a potential substantial completion in April with a certification of occupancy in May. So we're still on generally the same time frame that we wanted to be done by the spring of 2027, and we're still on that mark at this point in time. I would want to say that as we go through the various options with the design and the construction management team, our thought is the base project is the turf. It's the 50-meter pool with the 8 pickleball courts. 2 additions that we would want to go to final design and bidding would be the instructional pool and would be the sports performance. And so we can make some further determinations on, whether those fit within the budget once we have final design and once we have final estimates based upon bids. These were some of the guiding principles that we've gotten from the users and from U.S. City Council, is that we certainly want, for our conditions of satisfaction, to have this be a great quality of life investment for the community. We wanted it to really provide economic impact, and we wanted to be flexible and be able to grow into the future. And so that's what we're planning to present to you this evening. And the thing that really came out with people on the design threads is we wanted to have this locally driven and look like Grand Forks. We wanted to activate our public. And then finally, we wanted to have some visionary concepts that when people come to Grand Forks, like we hear over and over again, when people come to Grand Forks, we give people a wow factor every time they come to Grand Forks about all the great things that are going on in Grand Forks. With that, I'm going to hand it over to the consultant team that's going to come here in successive order to provide updates to you.
You can go to both podiums as you want there and turn the mic on. If you need an extra podium, feel free, or you can all stand next to each other as you wish.
Thanks, Mayor. I think we'll be okay here. Thank you, Mr. Phelan, especially for taking the first 7 slides off our plate there and explaining those. So thank you for that. Good evening, Rowczynski, President Council Sandy, and the council members. Today we'll go over the base floor plan of where we ended up after everything that Mr. Phelan talked about in terms of the process in the last couple of weeks. This is beginning to get to our conclusion of the schematic design phase of the project, the first phase of the project. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn over to our partner, Zach Bisek, over at BRS Architecture, and Oliver Finman too. We'll follow him here too, but we'll have Zach run through the floor plan here, where we're at today with the 3 major components. Some of the other components, we'll move into the cost estimate update on where we're at that reflects this base plan right here today. And then we also talk about some value analysis considerations that we've done in terms of what we heard from the public of other program areas that are going to be kind of important to the project, and for consideration what that means to the project in terms of program, in terms of budget. So with that, Zach, I'll turn it over to you and have you run through.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you, members of council, for letting us help you share where we're at today. So what I'm going to walk through is the base project. I'll turn it over to Oliver and Adam again to talk about some of those, the costing models where we're at today and some of the alternates. So the base project, as we have it today, what you're seeing on the screen, the 3 main areas of the project. We have our large indoor turf area that's, designed to fit full-size regulation, football, soccer, and lacrosse. In addition, the ability to be flexible with divisible curtains for youth programming as well. Indoor sprint track for sports training, as well as some other turf space, batting cages, other drop-down amenities. The pickleball area, 8 pickleball courts for competitive pickleball play. That's on the south side near the entry, and then the indoor aquatics facility. Right now, a 50-meter pool with 2 bulkheads and the ability for diving as well. Some of the support spaces that are critical to this indoor facility, multi-use dry, multi-use rooms, a couple of those, as well as multi-use wet spaces off the aquatics area for support, training, party rentals, all those sort of things. Locker rooms, meet management spaces, along with all the lifeguard support areas. In addition, the main administrative area houses space for the district to run the facility and their operations, and touchdown space for the organization groups to come in and do their planning for their programming. In addition, storage is being provided for all the major supports, major elements, pickleball, turf, and the aquatic space to support those adequately. One thing that is not currently in this plan from the previous versions is the sports training element, to balance kind of where the budget was at, and talking through all the stakeholders, the user groups. They felt that there was one area that what wasn't required as part of the base plan, knowing they have current facilities existing. So there is future expansion. You can see on the left side to the west of the project within the dashed line, future expansion availability on site, whether that's future pickleball courts, whether that's sports training eventually, whether that's other amenities. That is a potential growth area for the project at some point. On the second level, the mezzanine level, this area is really primarily dedicated to spectator viewing. We'll talk about spectator seating in a second for all the different sporting types, but from a high level, this is spectator seating for the natatorium, indoor pool space, some secondary spectator seating down into the turf area, as well as some lounge seating and support spaces. From a number standpoint, these are the numbers of what is included from a spectator seating standpoint. In the field house, the turf area, there's about 384 seats in flexible seating at the turf level. The mezzanine, as I mentioned, has approximately 72 spectator seats looking down at the turf from that upper level. And then there's additional 30 or so table and chair seating. So around 100 spectator seats up on that mezzanine level looking to turf, just under 500 total for turf viewing. The pickleball, there's approximately 120 seating spaces for athletes and or spectators within that space. In addition, along that hallway, there's viewing into the pickleball space. So additional viewing from people in that hallway. And then for the natatorium, as I mentioned, as a whole, there's about 834 seats from a ticketed perspective. 702 are fixed seats in the current configuration. There's about 24 from an ADA and companion seating standpoint, and then just over 100 from a standing room rail seating. There's rail seating behind the fixed seats. In addition to that, there's lounge seating and other supplemental seating at that level that aren't necessarily ticketed seating, but could be for larger venues if needed. Overall, the overall facility square footage is about 207,000 square feet, 177 on the main level, and about 30,000 on the upper mezzanine level. That's the kind of overall base project. Adam, you want to talk about the concepts?
Thanks, Zach. We'll go through some of the exterior renderings here over the next. So the exterior portion of the building is really looking at a constrained architectural style. We're talking about the large volumes that we have and working to streamline and be efficient, but also when we talk about those guiding principles that Todd went over a little bit about infusing some of that activation and energy, some of that fluidity into the project. When we talk about making this something that's visionary, something that's local, but also durable, there's a lot of things to consider. And so what we're really trying to do is really focus our attention where it has the most value in terms of an architectural style. And so you can see here, this is the view from 42nd as you would approach the facility, not only from the street, but also the parking lot. You can see that it is a very restrained looking facility. We're talking about metal panel. We're talking about very durable, long lasting materials for a timeless look. At the same time, we're finding those opportunities, such as where the pickleball is at, where the aquatics is at, and infusing some of that energetic design in there to really, again, accentuate those spaces, but also promote that idea of activation, energy, and something that's a little visionary as well. You can see to the main entrance with the appropriate size of daylighting into the lobby space, the second floor space, to take advantage of those opportunities. The same thing would happen with the aquatics on 42nd. To really have that transparency, that connection between the outside and the inside of what's really happening in the facility, which is very important, which we'll go into the next three spaces. I'll have Zach talk about those interior spaces in which we're trying to find that transparency, that connection between the exterior and the interior to promote the activation of these performance spaces.
So one of the main key concepts that we always feel is important in these recreation facilities, these public facilities, is this sense of, being able to view all the activities as much as possible. It allows for, better marketing of what's going on, learning of what the new activities and events are from a safety standpoint, seeing all these spaces at once. From a management standpoint, you cut down on staffing. So this lobby, views of the lobby, and it's really trying to show off, views to the pickleball court, views to the turf. You can't see it, but to the right behind this is a view to the pool, indoor natatorium. And seeing all those spaces at once really brings energy and life. It's also strategically designed such that, as those spaces kind of grow and shrink, they're centered off this center point in the lobby to make that more easily accommodable. You can look down the center there, views down the hallway towards the pickleball, and then, stairs up to that mezzanine area. This is a view from that mezzanine looking down into the turf space. You can see in the far background, right below that graphic, that sprint track. But this is the flexible kind of table and chair seating up at that mezzanine level. Here's a view into the natatorium, looking from, the south side of the pool deck, the spectator seating, the 700 plus spectator seating. and then the diving boards at the far end. Locker room space, support spaces underneath that spectator seating. Really trying to create, a wow factor within this facility.
Good evening. I'm Oliver Finneman. I'm with McGough Construction. I'm here to go over the schematic design estimates. So just to start off with, McGough partnered with construction engineers. We have put together a cost estimate for the construction costs of the project. Also, Blundell & Associates was hired as a third-party estimator, a nationwide firm with a good reputation for facilities like this. Independently, we both looked at the project. We looked at it, essentially in two different ways, and when we came back together, our cost estimates were within 3% of one another, which, on a project this size, 3%'s a big dollar value, but from where we're at and from a design standpoint, that's actually exceptional to be within just a few percentages, because the information that we use isn't fully developed, so we have to go out to the market. We've got to fill in a lot of gaps to really hone in on what we think the construction costs are. So it's, at this point, it's as much art as it is, counting, et cetera. So.
Oliver, can I just stop? Can you just speak up just a little bit so people can hear you throughout the back there?
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, apologize for that. So where we're at in the process, so this is the schematic design set that we've estimated. There'll be a design development set that comes out with more information, and then finally the construction documents that are issued that we can go out and get firm fixed pricing on. So this is kind of estimate 1 of 3, and as the design gets more developed, our certainty of pricing gets better. With that being said, I'm going to move on to the budget. So before I get into the actual numbers, I want to make sure it's just clear what the estimated numbers we're looking at do include. So what the numbers we're about to go through will be the turf box, the 8 pickleball courts, the office admin space for the parks, and the natatorium with the 50-meter pool. Some of the things that aren't included in here would be the sports training space, which we talked about, the 25-yard instructional pool, some of the site development costs, think like parking lots and retention ponds. Those are funded from a separate source. And then the FF&E, the furnitures, fixtures, and equipment, that too is funded separately. So with that, I'll talk that the project budget all in is $110 million. The current construction estimate, the hard cost that we can quantify, that's about $92 million. And on top of that, we're carrying a contingency for the design completion. Like I had mentioned, the design is not complete now, so we have to carry a contingency to bridge the gap between where the design's at now, where it's going to be at the end of the day when we can get the firm fixed pricing, which brings us to a total of $98,490,000 for the construction estimate. You want to couple that with the soft cost for the project, which in this case, the vast majority of those soft costs are the design fees, architectural engineering fees. We bring the hard costs and the soft costs together. We've got a total of $107,290,000. A couple contingencies that aren't in that number quite yet, but we've broken them out as a way to kind of identify that there are additional contingencies that we'd recommend carrying on the project. The first one being the owner contingency. This right now is calculated at 3% of the value of construction. What this is there for is to fund unforeseen issues that arise during either design or construction. and then a escalation inflation contingency. So our pricing takes into account where costs are at today. We've seen the rapid inflation slow down that kind of plagued the industry over the last 3 to 5 years. But we still believe it's prudent to carry a contingency to cover the increase in costs that'll happen really between now and the time that we bid the project out, as the contractors will be receiving pricing increases from their vendors and suppliers, and obviously the labor market hasn't cooled off yet. So those are things that they'll want to factor into the bid pricing. So those two contingencies are total about $7 million. So combining the cost estimate with the two contingencies, we're sitting right now at about $114 million total. And I think I'll turn it back over to Adam.
Thank you, Oliver. So it was important today to come to you all with a project that was in the ballpark of the budget or on budget, that reflected the program entities that we worked through with all the stakeholders, steering committee, to make this project a success. That also works with the guiding principles in how this project will be viewed and how we make decisions. So all those want to align to make sure that we have the expectations of what this project is. With that being said, there have been other considerations that we have studied over the process of this project and schematic design as feedback from the community, from the stakeholders, the steering committee, on some other features that would be program elements to help supplement and again still meet those guiding principles to make this project a success. Now, with those considerations, it do come at a cost to that, and so what we have done, working with Oliver and his team, is identify what those considerations are, what's important, and what those costs could be. We have 5 value analysis considerations that we've identified through our process over the last couple of weeks in that period, with the first one being aquatics. The aquatics value analysis item looks at the secondary 25-yard 4-lane instructional pool. What comes with that is going to be some additional square footage, not only for the pool itself, but also for other areas such as locker, and I'll show you in a second here, mezzanine space that comes with that. The other one that we're looking at would be the diving well. The deep end of the pool is 13 feet. The diving well would be an additional 7 feet that would allow for multiple other programs such as UND Aerospace or other entities or agencies in the community to utilize the deep diving well. That is one that we are working with UND on in terms of having that be something funded through them, the aerospace program. But that is the secondary value analysis item that we have. Down at the bottom, the ad for a 4-lane 25-yard instructional pool with the square foot additions to support that would be in the range of $6.8 million. That would be added to the numbers that Oliver just presented right now. The 20-foot deep well, again, that additional 7 feet, as identified here, would be about $1.1 million add to the budget that we just presented right now. And that would be one of the value analysis considerations for aquatics. As I mentioned, what happens in the on the first floor has a triple effect on the mezzanine, so there will be some additional square footages that would be added to that to accommodate the mezzanine. So these numbers here you see on the mezzanine are included in that $6.8 million for the aquatics. Number 2 is sports training. As Zach mentioned before, sports training was part of the base project up until we got to the estimating and value analysis period. As we met with the stakeholders, the City and Park District, this was one program element that did go away at this time. It is still being considered as a possible consideration to the project. You can see here it's about 1,500 square feet on the west side of the building with a total add of about $2.1 million, again, to the numbers that were presented by Oliver in addition to.
Mr. Davis, if I could just one question quickly. I think it's important to note that really the instructional pool needs to be built from the start, where sports training is probably something that could be added later, but you're not going to add that instructional pool. That would just be impossible. Just want to make that clear. Is that correct as you understand it?
That would be a correct assumption. Anything dealing with the aquatics and the sophistication of the construction and what they're doing at day one is definitely the preferred option for any of those features. When it comes to sports training, that would be an element or program that would have easier constructability to it later on in the future if so funds are available. So I would agree with that, Mayor. The next two are going to be dealing with the 300-meter track. So we've done analysis on a 300-meter track in a couple of versions. The first version here on number 3 is going to be a traditional style 300-meter track, 6 lanes. There are three main components to this option to make it a competition venue for track and field events. Of course, it would be the additional square footage to support the track itself, around the turf and the field events. It would include spectator seating. That would be permanent spectator seating to accommodate what would be needed for, again, competition events. And the third element would be additional square footage to provide for field sports. That would be your pole vault, your long jump, your shot put. Now, with these three components, for the traditional style, this would be an add of $22.4 million to the budget numbers that were presented earlier. Number 4 is everything that I just mentioned, except this is going to be an elongated version option. The benefit here to the elongated version option is going to be in the framing of that volume and some efficiencies in a shorter span. But again, though, with the same components, this would come to a $14.9 million add to the numbers I presented earlier. So that completes the value analysis considerations that we have right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this over to Alex Larson. She's going to be with Bolton & Mank and talk about the master plan and traffic study update. And I'm sure we'll be back to answer any questions after that. So thank you for your time.
Hi, good evening. Like Adam said, I'm Alex Larson with Bolton & Mink, and I'm just going to provide an update on the master plan and traffic study. Just to kind of recap where we were a couple months ago, when we started this master plan and traffic study analysis, we met with all three of the stakeholders looking to move to the site and kind of developed goals and values between each of these stakeholders and what was important to them on at this location. Some of the guiding principles that we used in developing the master plan were some of those components that overlapped, such as pedestrian safety, outdoor spacing and components, and access to parking and accessibility to parking. From there, we kind of went through a rendition of just moving all the components around on site, seeing how they worked, what didn't work, what fit, and just to get a better analysis of what the site could be and what makes sense. So from there were two really guiding principles. One, BMX track, perfect where it's at, wasn't moving. The second is there are large public and private utilities on the south side of this project that really did not allow any of these components to be in that location. From there, that kind of guided what we used to be our main layout and helped us move forward with the master plan. So this is what was presented about 2 months ago, just kind of showing blobs of everything, where they were roughly going to be on site, and just roughly the spacing that those components would encompass. From there, we moved into schematic design, and this is really where the master plan got a lot of shape and some of these elements got refined. So from here, I think it's important to note the athletic complex, up in that northeast corner. Some of the main components with this is having the accessibility for parking, their outdoor plaza spaces, the service entrances in the back. Also, since this is going to be a largely recreational space, having that large drop-off area that accounts for about 18 to 20 vehicles in stacking, or about 8 to 10 buses. From there, we moved through the Children's Museum site. Some of the main components for them were, again, their outdoor plaza space, their drop-off area, and this site both working for their indoor and outdoor programming elements that they would like to incorporate on site. BMX track, the BMX track currently doesn't have any outdoor facilities or access to outdoor facilities. So when laying this out, it was important to provide some pedestrian movement accesses for the BMX track to be able to cross over into the athletic complex and potentially use those facilities as well. The other thing kind of that really developed was pedestrians, the connectivity of the pedestrian traffic throughout site. We really wanted all these components to work together to be able to access each other, to not impede traffic, not to be in danger of traffic. And so having all these components with the athletic complex, the potential park area kind of in the middle of both the athletic complex and the museum site, and the pedestrian flow between them was the main focus of this master plan. I'll get into the parking a little bit more, but having components and access to parking for all the components, the BMX track, the athletics complex, the park, and the museum was also very important. So then that takes us into the traffic study, analyzing the traffic movements, the current intersections, how they currently function, and how the addition of all these pieces into those intersections were going to impact those intersections and providing guidance in traffic movements that we are working with city engineering for. Again, it's important to note that these roads are designed with the main entrance being over 30 feet wide and some of the traffic flows throughout the site being 28 feet wide. This allows dual traffic coming through the site and then easily giving all those drop-off areas plenty of space for cars to move in and out of those. Again, pedestrian access and circulation, providing good circulation, safe circulation, having access to all these programming spaces, pedestrian movements through these parking lots was also a key element that we looked at throughout this site. And then these are just some of the outdoor components and programming and the relationships between all of them. And then to provide a little bit more data on the parking study, again, we worked with the city engineering and planning and zoning quite a bit on the parking and analysis. And we developed kind of a rough idea of what the size of these components are and then how much parking would be needed on both weekdays and weekday parkings. We also took into account a shared parking concept with the Alaris Center. There is plenty of parking to the north in the Alaris parking lots, and so we did analyze this with a 10% parking share throughout this site. So we are somewhere in between that 556 and 640 parking stalls, and the site currently accommodates about that 640 number. I'm going to turn it over to Jay.
Evening, neighbors, council members, mayor. Thanks for time to the floor. Hopefully I speak loud enough. So it's a pretty good segue from kind of the planning and the more conceptual to kind of where the rubber hits the road with the civil engineering and the site development. I'll forsake a lot of background. Rest assured, this has been a pretty exhaustive work effort with the city engineering staff. And if you've ever had the pleasure of working with engineers, sometimes it's hard to convince one or the other they're not correct. But ultimately, we got to a point where I think everybody came to acceptance of status of the design relative to accuracy of the cost estimating. And that's kind of what I'll spend a few minutes here talking about. So this infrastructure plan, for those engineers on the council, will recognize that this is not a final work product. You know, the structural or the civil engineering still in a broad-based kind of systems-based cost estimating. We know how much a linear foot of 31-foot road generally costs. That's what we're running with. We haven't quantified it to specific detail. But the purpose of this exhibit is to kind of try to tie in some finance information you'll hear at the very end of the presentation. There's a legend there to identify specific areas. We kind of tried to group the site into major elements, primarily in anticipation of some finance discussion again that you will hear later. They are like especially the entry plaza. That's just a placeholder. There's an element there where I think we're pretty ripe for some refinement. But again, we're quite comfortable we've got costs encumbered for that. We'll flip ahead to the next sheet. We're really summarizing multiple work efforts to date. Thanks. I thought you guys were driving this thing. So anyhow, now we're kind of looking at some summary of costs. And I think between July 18th and September 27th, I probably allocated costs 12 different ways. To look at it in a certain way, look at the costs in a certain other manner, all to kind of try to build a finance plan is really what this is going to boil down to. And you'll see here what we're presenting tonight is only the end result of cost allocation by construction type. And again, you'll see where this really does correlate to to the finance discussion you'll hear shortly. Couple big picture items here. the 11,739,493 and 83 cents. It's a pretty wildly optimistic level of precision, rounded up to 11.8. That number is about $1.1 million lower than what we saw as a first cost estimate in July. So we're kind of bringing this thing in the right direction. We did increase the construction cost, and that's mostly due to allocating one type of construction element, taking out the sales tax financed portion of the project, moving into other areas that will be financed with other mechanisms. So the overall net didn't necessarily change. We're just allocating it, presenting it in a different manner. So that's why I kind of want to focus on that, the bottom line number of 11.8 being about $1.1 million from where we started. And on this same exhibit here, you can see how we're allocating that to different construction types. Not by areas. That information will get used here shortly. And so with that, that's kind of the short summary on the site costs. I sounds like we're answering questions later, so no, I think I've had enough. But Maureen, if you will, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Mayor, members of City Council, Mike and I are going to tag team this a little bit on the financing side, but first of all, just as a review, that 0.75% sales tax, the voters went to the ballot box in November of last year and did vote favorably to not only extend the use of that past the sunset of 2029 to use for capital long-term needs of the Alerus Center, but also to use for this facility that we're talking about tonight. Important to just keep in mind the timeline of that Alerus Center debt that does mature in 2029, December of 2029, with an annual bond payment on that debt of roughly $4 million. Throughout this, we've been working hand in hand with Bond Council just to determine what that borrowing capacity is. We want to make sure we keep in mind just rating considerations on those bonds, debt service coverage, reserve requirements, what those interest rates are expected to do, but also considering capital needs of both those facilities long-term. So we have determined that, as you've heard me state before, $100 million, I'm still looking at an estimated borrowing capacity at that level. Mike will get into a little bit more detail how we get into the $110 million total budget. But looking at this and also, as I stated, keeping a sustainable plan for current and future capital needs of both the Alerus Center and the Altru Indoor Sports and Aquatics Complex, while meeting debt service coverage. We want to make sure we don't impact negatively our bond rating with Moody's. We've had conversations with Moody's. I am looking at, in our analysis, a 2 times coverage roughly. That is estimating 3% growth in that sales tax this year and next year, and then holding it level going forward. So we believe that is a conservative projection on those levels. Taking it one step further, if I look at holding those collections where we're at today and just holding it level, I look at coverage about 1.75. So in looking at our current Moody's rating, we're at a AA3 on these bonds and potential hopefully upgrade to AA2. What would be important there is if we can hit that 2 times coverage. But more to come on that. I'm going to turn it over to Mike now to go through some details.
Thank you, Maureen. Good evening, Mayor, President Sandy, and members of council. As we've looked at the cash flow that this sales tax generates, we of course have to balance that we have existing debt on the Alerus Center. We have ongoing capital needs at the Alerus Center, plus trying to maximize that borrowing capacity without affecting those areas that Maureen mentioned, specifically the bond rating that we have.
So working with our bond consultants, the cleanest way that we can move forward while maximizing borrowing capacity is to somehow get the Alara Center debt off the books, whether that be a refinancing or paying off with cash. At that call date in 2025 is when we'd be able to do something like that. Unfortunately, we don't have enough cash at the moment to be able to pay off that debt in cash. And so the question was brought up, how can we delay any new bond payments with the new facility as long as we can, so we can take advantage of that low interest debt that we have on the Alara Center debt, while still allowing that sales tax revenue to come in and build up cash over time. So I have had some conversations with our local banking partners as well as our national banking partners, and there has been a pretty good reception to some sort of bridge financing, interim financing line of credit throughout the construction process that could allow us to take advantage of the low interest debt currently and build up that cash in the meantime to try to pay off the Alara Center debt in cash before we permanently finance something for the All-True complex.
Mike, sorry to interrupt you.
Yes.
How much money do we have and how much do we owe?
Currently, we have about 21 million in debt with the Alara Center. I believe we're
12
projected
million, 15 million we have in the bank?
about 15, yes.
Thank you.
Yep, that's what we're currently sitting at, projected at the end of the year, yep. So that $100 million borrowing capacity, that's kind of the Goldilocks when we look at not only short-term needs and cash constraints, but also long-term capital planning for not only the Alara Center, but this new complex. We've known for a while with our analysis that the Alara Center needs roughly $3 to $4 million a year ongoing. So we, of course, plug that number into the long-term cash flow analysis right away. By the time we get into the permanent financing, we should be bringing in about $12 million from the sales tax itself. Working with bond counsel with the current rate environments at that $100 million borrowing capacity, debt payment would be about 6.3, which leaves another 1.7 that could go towards any other capital needs for the new facility or any of these items that we've had to pull from the base project at the time. Additionally, we know that we have the All-True naming rights. That's going to be over a 25-year period. And then we also, as Todd mentioned earlier, the Frystead donation as well as Simplot donation that we have in there. So combining all of that to get to the $110 million that we're looking at, of course, the $100 million of borrowing. And by the time we get to that 2027, 2028, when we would look to do the permanent financing, we should be able to not only pay off the Alara Center debt, should be able to pay the new bond reserve with cash and have about $10 million left in the pot to get us to that 110. Ongoing after that, some of these things that we've had to pull out from the base project, there should be excess cash flow for just the All-True complex portion of the sales tax that we could backfill some of these projects over time. Of course, we'd have to balance that with the long-term capital needs for that facility. But there will be some immediate excess based on our projections currently, and that's, of course, taken in the donations, the All-True naming rights, as well as some expenses that will, with the special assessments that will be applied to this facility, which Maureen will finish off with here.
Thank you, Mike. So then just to break out the numbers that Mr. Clevin shared with you tonight on those site infrastructure costs and how we would plan to fund those different components. In looking at Storm Pond, water, sanitary, we'd look to those utility funds and their construction reserve cash balances to pay for the portions listed there based on estimates. As far as the rest, the roadway, the 17th Avenue extension, the perimeter roadway, the parking lots, that we would look to take the portion applicable to the Ultra Indoor Sports Complex and the remainder then split between our Economic Development Fund and our Street Infrastructure Fund. And we would look on those last three components on this chart to special assess ourselves and have annual payments that we would work into our cash flows. I'm going to turn it over to Todd. Thank you.
Mayor Buczynski and Council President Sani, there are three attachments too that relate to the operation and maintenance. that are attached to the new, that's new information. Those 3 attachments came from the Park District and their consultants. And I just want to highlight, if you look at the first attachment, really the sweet spot is, under that first attachment is number 3 and 4. Number 3, from an operating perspective, is number 3 is turf, a 50-meter pool, pickleball, and instructional pool. Is estimated as an operating deficit of $383,000. And then number 4 is a turf, a 50-meter pool, pickleball, instructional pool, and sports training. That their estimate is to operating deficit at $381,000. And then if you look at option 1 and 2 and 5, 6, and 7, that does not include pickleball, does not include the instructional pool. Those operating deficits range from the high 500,000s to the 800,000. So the answer to that is the importance of pickleball to the facility from an operating revenue perspective, and also the instructional pool from an operating revenue perspective. Is that those two are really the sweet spots of driving revenue on an annual basis to that particular facility. And as Maureen's talked about in the slide, when we've talked to our partners, the school district, UND, and Altru, they've identified the instructional pool as a really important component part that they'd like to see. And not only like to see, but they would like to see, once we get through design development, we get some real numbers, that they'd like to work with us through that process and help us close that financial gap, if there is one, once we get to that point. But they've stressed the importance of having that into the facility. I'm going to ask, Mr. Gostin's doing some great work with UND. The other thing, when we talk about that 300, we always knew the importance of the UND facilities to this, so that as Council Vice President Weigel has always said, he doesn't want redundancy. So we've really worked hard with UND and the Park District and the school district so that we can use that facility that will be a complement to this. And I'm happy to say Mr. Gostad's reached an agreement with those entities that he's going to go over this evening, and then also discuss the Park District operating agreement too.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, President Sandy, and members of the council. I'll start off with the agreement. It's really a management agreement for the ASIC facility between the city and the Park District, where the Park District would be managing that facility. We've exchanged drafts. I've sent the initial draft to the attorney for the Park District, and I've gotten some responses back. There are some matters that still need to be resolved. And my expectation is that we're going to have a meeting with staff, both with the Park District and the city, along with the attorneys, to go through some of the issues, because we've now kind of crystallized some of the matters that need to be discussed. I'll just go through a couple of them that I've identified from what I can see. Approvals by the city council with respect to the operating budget for that facility, approvals with respect to the operations manual. And we've intentionally not tried to describe what the fees are going to be to enter the facility or to participate in a particular activity. That's what the operations manual would do. And so the parties can, get together and discuss those issues. Maintenance, the level of maintenance and capital improvements for the city versus the Park District is a matter that needs to be discussed. And I'll just go through the bigger ones that I identified. There are others, obviously. What would be included with respect to operating revenue, naming rights, for example, is that, or sponsorships, is that operating revenue or not? And what would be included and what would be excluded from operating expenses? Again, those capital expenditures, things like that. Naming rights, the level of naming rights with respect to, the Park District and what they're able to do versus the city, and using those naming rights for the construction. And then the term, I think the parties have both kind of concurred that there could be a 1-year notice to terminate the agreement. And then the length of time, assuming that doesn't happen, how long a period of time would that be? I think there was discussion about a 30-year term. I think the Park District is looking at a 10-year, but those are primarily the most significant items that I've identified so far. I'm expecting that we'll be able to work through those issues and present a finalized agreement to the city council here in the near future. With respect to the UND athletic facility agreement, Mr. Phelan is correct. This afternoon, we were just able to kind of finalize that, at least from the lawyer's standpoint. It's still subject to approval by, obviously, the city council, the school district, park district, and UND, but I'm not expecting any real substantive changes to that document. What that document does is it really, and we talked about this, it memorializes what's currently existing with respect, particularly to the school district and UND and their use of their facilities, and it's directed more now towards the Memorial Stadium turf and track, the Pollard facility, and the softball field. What it does is it directs the parties to meet on an annual basis to try to target those dates that the school district, the park district particularly would want to use the facility. I see that the city is kind of the mediator between all those parties to assure that they get together on an annual basis and that it's a community-based type of meeting to allow those other entities to try to target, like I said, those dates that they'd use it. The term of the agreement is tied to that softball loan that was made by the Growth Fund. It was about a $2 million loan last spring. During that term of that loan, as long as there's any outstanding balance, this agreement can't be terminated. So that we added that. In addition, there is a one-year notice that a party could provide notice and say we want to terminate the agreement. However, what was added, and it was added today, was if you're going to do that, before you send out that termination notice, you have to send written notices to what the reasons are that you'd like to terminate, and the parties are to work in good faith to try to resolve those issues before a termination would occur. So it's actually, like I said, it's a model agreement to get the parties together to work out scheduling going into the future with respect to these facilities. The one item it does not include, and I couch it in terms of the COVID, when they had the Pollard was open for that testing site. This agreement doesn't deal with those type of emergency situations. That would be a separate agreement between the parties. So it was good news with respect to that. We were able to finalize that agreement, and again, I expect that the management agreement for the Park District will be coming forward to you in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gosted.
Mayor Buczynski, that's the end of our presentation. I know we have stakeholder input and a lot of people want to talk, so I don't know if you want to take Q&A now or do you want to let
Yeah,
the
I think
people speak first?
We'll probably just get some initial comments. I'll make a couple of comments and we'll have the stakeholder group. We kind of have them divided in turf-related, aquatics-related, pickleball-related, so maybe we'll just spend maybe 5 minutes here first just on some council member comments and then go to that. From my standpoint, I mean, obviously the numbers will get tighter as we get into design development. So it's important to move forward with something that we believe is going to be as close to the final project as possible. I think the instructional pool really needs to be added to the base project. I think it pays for itself over the life of the project. I think we need to lean on UND and the Park District. They're eliminating essentially 3 pools into this one. I think UND's been a good partner. The city's been there for Memorial Village. We've been there for the softball field, for the Nistler. Really hope that they'd be able to be here to get us across the hump on that. And then both the school district and UND are going to have some operational savings by not having the pools and the facilities that they currently, well, they're not all running right now, but the Hislop certainly is. So I'd really like to see all those elements move forward to the design development. So we've got harder numbers there with the support of our important community partners. But just want to thank all the work that's gone into this. It's been 2 years to get to today, and it's pretty exciting. I'll reiterate that. But open up to council for some comments. Mr. Friedhoffs, please.
So I can't take credit for anything that happened over the past 2 years, but watching this advance to where it's at now, I think is pretty important. And I want to focus on the pickleball for a second, because when you guys came out in force and said, call your councilman, I think I received probably about 90% of the calls from everyone in this room. But it shows the passion that you guys have for this sport and for the sense of community that I physically saw when I came out to visit you. So I applaud you guys, applaud you for spending your Monday night football here. I think it's pretty important. But I really look forward to the day when we cut the ribbon on this and we walk through the doors and, we all jump in the pool together. I think it's something that's really a good quality of life for this community. And it's something that I think we're missing. And I think this is going to be a huge success when we look back on this for our kids and for our kids' kids. So thanks for everyone's time.
I don't think anyone here is going to win a cannonball competition with Mr. Freehoffs, but anyways, any other comments from council members they want to make prior to hearing the stakeholders? Yeah, Ms. Lunsky, please.
I just had some questions. I'm not sure who to, but the pickleball courts, is it one space or are they 8 individual rooms?
We'll bring up the design team to get them for Q&A.
Hi. Yes, it is a single space. It's a dedicated pickleball space for all the courts with the clearances for, competitive play, clearances for runoff, and the ability to, separate them with, netting, fencing as needed for the best play possible.
So that they could be one space? Possibly, could I possibly rent out that space and clear it all out? And
You could. In essence, you could use that as a multi-use space. I mean, depending on the park district, you got to maintain the court surfacing and all that for best play, but yes, it's a large space that has potential other uses.
Another issue I see, I brought this up earlier, is storage. I don't think there's enough storage. I predict in 1 year there'll be those big ugly storage things out back. Is there any possibility of getting more storage?
Yeah, storage.
I think one point is that storage is very expensive in this building, and I know the park district's going to probably utilize as much of the facilities that they currently have, but why don't you go over the storage, just so we're aware of the areas that are included?
So currently, the storage area is included within the aquatic space. There's storage here to the north, and there's also additional storage here for that venue, those uses. The large storage here on the west side, southwest corner, is for the turf area. So turf maintenance, turf care. There's space for tip and roll bleachers to be stored away if they want to be outside or pulled off of the large volume turf space. There's also space for some of the organizational groups to store their stuff on site as well. There's not, currently the plan is that all the pickleball is permanent pickleball, so there isn't a lot of needs for storage of that elements, but that's something to be considered if the program desires were to change.
And then my last question, so the pool, if you put in the 2 pools, the actual square footage doesn't change?
No, the square footage does change. It's approximately about 11,000 square feet. So currently, as you see it now, this box here is the 50-meter pool with the diving on the north end. When we flip forward to this other plan, you can see now here is the additional 4-lane, 25-yard instructional pool. So the space expands, to the north or, stretches up on the page.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anybody else with some initial comments? Ms. Osowski, please.
Yeah, I just have some questions right away on the cost. So the original bill, or the first slide that you showed on the cost is $107 million, correct? And then you have another $7 million in contingencies, or for the owner contingency, the escalation to spring 2025 start, that's another $7 million, correct?
That's correct.
So that would be on top of the 107. So that would be 114.
Yes.
And then I saw throughout the presentation another 11.8 on site prep and parking. correct? That's in addition, so that
Correct.
puts us up to 125.8 million, like total. I know they're coming out of different funds and everything. Then we move on to the museum, which initially we gave them $10 million, so that brings us up to 135, plus the value of the land that we will discuss later. So that puts us at 135. And then beautification, and like that little pocket park. I guess I was under the impression that when I was first shown drawings of the museum, that all of this kind of that outdoor play area that they presented to us, that would be paid for by them. But now it looks like that's going to be put on us as a city. So I guess I see the $107 million for basically, without the dive pool, without the track or anything like that. But then when I add it up, 107 looks okay, but now we're sitting at $135 million. And, Maureen was up here talking about how we can bond for approximately 100. I'm just really concerned at the total cost of this entire project and doing it all at once we start looking at site prep and then covering even the pocket park, which originally wasn't in our plan. It was part of the museums. So, even if you add another 10 million onto that, that's $145 million. I'm very concerned about the amount of money that we're going to spend on this. And like I said, it's kind of 107 for the building, but then you start looking at everything else, and it's a lot of money that I don't feel that we can even bond for. And pulling out of different accounts, but it doesn't sound very fiscally responsible for us to build ultimately $140 million legacy site. So I'm very concerned about that.
Maybe you can talk first on the pocket park, and then maybe, Maureen, you can go back over the financial pages to see where the different funds are coming from. But maybe you can start with the pocket park. I don't think that was included, so I'm not sure where that came from. But Mr. Phelan, go ahead.
Yep, Mayor Buchansky. The destination park is still here, so there is a area that is set aside for that. We don't anticipate that being built. First off, obviously, you likely will be green grass, if you will, until that is a site in the future that we move forward with. So that this is the area that is set aside for the destination park. I suspect when the Children's Museum, there's other areas. At 6 is this play area. Some of this will be phased, where it won't be built all at once, but there's room to grow and develop. But a lot of these areas, for instance, the Children's Museum will have a 4 to 5 acre site where their children's museum will go. There'll be additional acreage that will be out there. So in the future, our city council can determine let's move forward because we have the money for the destination park or a play area that can be expanded. But so this is still a phased type of approach. I think with all the various contingencies, these guys are architects and construction managers. They never want to be wrong. And you know how they're never wrong? They keep adding contingencies. So that's what they're doing. And so really what I'm saying is 107 million with contingencies are in there right now. Okay.
There's a whole nother page that has additional contingencies.
And those are all things, because what they want to do is warn us at a very high level at this point of, how the project could change. That's the importance of going to design development, where you get a more refined scope and design with estimates and what we're doing. So we get certainty. So the more certainty that we have in the bidding process, the reduced are the contingencies going to be. But without that, without us moving forward to more detailed work, we'll keep wringing our hands about contingencies. And so that's what we're asking, to move forward with design development so that we can start refining what this project is. as we move forward. And Marie can go over the estimates, and we thought, the sales tax can only pay for certain things, and then using other funds within reason to help support this site.
Yes, thank you, Todd. So this slide is intended to show how we would handle that site costs of the entire area between the water, storm pond, sanitary parking lot. So with those components, we would look to, like I said, our stormwater fund, our water utility fund, our wastewater utility fund for those type of infrastructure for the entire site area. And then we would look to the 0.75% sales tax for the portion related to this building for all roadway matters and parking lots. And then all the common parking lots in the perimeter road, we would look to split that with our economic development fund and our street infrastructure fund. And those last three, we would spread that out as part of the CIP with the annual cash flow that would be presented with the budgets.
Thank you, Maureen. I guess I'm just kind of looking for what is the total going to be, regardless of what fund we're taking out of?
I think we'll get to design development and get that further. I think if you want to go ahead and
I would
you can
say
go ahead and give an answer, and then
I
we're going to
think
move on to stakeholder input here.
This 11.7, I think, again, we have a 15% contingency on this 11.7. Again, the engineers don't want to be wrong on coming back, and it's going to cost more than the estimate. So I think if you add the 11.7, maybe you could probably take some of the contingency off, plus the 107 million for the facility itself, plus this 11.7. And then we're talking about that instructional pool. And that instructional pool is about $7 million. So if you took the 107 plus 7 plus the 11, that's really what we're, conceptually likely to ask you next week to move forward with as part of this project. Not only to support the ultra indoor sports and aquatic, but that infrastructure would serve that entire site. And it's not much different than what we do with any large economic development project, where we come to you to say, as part of this large primary sector industry moving forward, we can help support them on water, sewer, storm. We can help support them on transportation infrastructure. And really, this is our way to help invest in our own project from a site perspective, similar to what we do with any large project that comes in front of the City Council.
And I would just add to part of this, as you had seen, we're going to work through to try to get some additional closing the gap with our funding partners, as well as the mayor had and Mr. Phelan had both spoken with both the school and UND and have those conversations to help fill that gap. But right now, we've got that 110 million. That includes $10 million cash and the 100 million borrowing, as well as this site infrastructure.
Thank you. Why don't you want to say something quick, then we'll come back and have a further debate. I just want to we got some stakeholders that have been waiting, but
Just
go ahead,
real
we'll
quick,
finish
Mayor.
on you, Vice President Lego.
Maureen or Mike, when we talk about what our interest rates are at today, when we look at bonding and what they could be at 2-3 years from down the road, where do you see us at? Because sure, we could bond for $100 million, it looks like 27, 28, but I'm assuming you're using a very conservative approach to those interest rates. What if they were to drop or go down? Are we at 110 million, 20 million, 30 million? Where would we be at?
Yes, Mr. Weigel, with our bond consultants, they more or less I can get a pretty good estimate of what rates should be, given what the Federal Reserve had kind of said that they're looking to do, and just historically seeing where they're projecting it to go. So a little bit conservative. I think there's maybe 0.5% interest rate padding that we have on there. But after the Feds just lowered the interest rates by 50 basis points the other week, but the numbers that we re-ran didn't really change much, because that was kind of in line with what we were projecting in the first place. So unless if rates stay where they're at, then of course that number would be probably closer to that $90 million borrowing. But from all the professional analysis and whatever else, we do believe that's going to probably lower another percentage by this time. So again, that's another element of trying to extend, or I guess delay, the permanent financing as long as possible to let the rate environment ease off a little bit, as well as let the sales tax build up.
Thank you.
All right, why don't we, I think turf probably has the least contention, so if anyone wanted to speak, we'll start. We've got turf, aquatics related, and pickleball. So if there was someone that wanted to speak on behalf of turf, please step up. Thank you.
Good evening. So Mayor Buchenski, President Sandy, council people, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity here. My name is Mike Biermeyer, and I am the Grand Forks Public Schools Activities Director. So I want to, again, thank you. The biggest thank you I need to put out there is for the community of Grand Forks for understanding the quality of life that this provides, the economic impact that this will provide. I want to tell you that I will do my part on the economic impact. We've already put bids in for conference and state swim events. And I want to just tell you that I'll put the support in also for that instructional pool. I think it's a huge value for this community. And I'll keep my comments real quick. That's all I got to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. I think it was on. There you go.
Okay. Mayor Buchinski, President Sandy, members of the council, thank you. I'm Miranda Clevin. I'm a board member of the Greater Grand Forks Soccer Club. I've spoken with you before about this, so I'll also keep my comments brief. I want to start by, again, thanking you for taking the leadership role on this and making this a discussion item that has lasted for decades, literally, actually, coming forward. And so from the turf perspective, we're very excited. Our mission is to provide competitive and recreational soccer opportunities for kids of all ages, all competitive levels. Obviously, we hear a lot about how Grand Forks needs to become more competitive. That's absolutely an opportunity here to offer year-round training for our athletes. But to bring more athletes in with more opportunity, it's a pretty low-cost sport for kids. And so that's our vision, is to bring as many kids in as we can, bring as many adults in, to develop more coaches within the community is also a benefit. In addition, I think I've loved the quality of life aspect of this from the start. I think as a soccer mom and as a board member for many years, I've had more than once people approach me and say, people new to the community, not used to our climate, say, when are we going to have somewhere to go in the winter to play our sports? And so I see a big benefit for not just the youth soccer players, but for athletes of all ages who want to play soccer. So again, I will add the one thing that we've felt very strongly about as a club is to maintain the full regulation size soccer field without clipping the corners. The Fritz Pollard Center is great. We rent space in there whenever we can. It's not large enough, however, to hold a regulation high school size game because of the corners. And so I think it's really important that we do this right, so we don't all look back and wish that we, had made that field full size. So that's the one thing that we've really advocated for. But other than that, we're very supportive. We're ready to be a good partner and bring in more tournaments, program as many opportunities as we can to generate revenue for the facility and economic development for the community. So again, thank you very much. We've been honored to be part of this very collaborative process. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Clevin.
So Mayor Buchinski, Councilman Sandy, and the rest of the council, I'm Paul Strandy on behalf of the Executive Director for Greater Grand Forks Youth Football. We're really excited about the opportunity to have this facility come on board. Our program has grown tremendously the last 7 years. We started doing some indoor stuff over at UND, and the way that's grown, we just see that there's all kinds of potential for more and more things we can do. We bring in a lot of kids from the surrounding communities, which is great. We've got our spring skills camp. We've grown from the first year of 300 and some kids to over 500. So we just see that the need is there. I think it's going to be used all the time. It's going to be something that's going to be busy, and it's just going to be great for our community to bring people in. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. Do we have someone else on turf? Yeah, please. Pickleball, hold on. We're going to do we save the best for last. So we're going to do aquatics next. I know. It's so exciting. All right, anybody got, I think we'll just move on there from the turf and we'll go, do we have someone from aquatics that kind of wanted to give us some of their thoughts? All right. Oh, you're growing, you got 3 now.
Mayor Buczynski, President Sandy, council members, thank you for this forum. My name is Drew Leon. I am the treasurer for the Wahoo Swim Club. I'm also a proud parent of 2 swimmers in the program for high school and club. I want to say again, thank you for the opportunity for this forum. Also, as a business owner in the community, thank you for leading this process and developing this facility. This is a great aspect when working with potential new hires in the community of highlighting this and showing the commitment to youth sports, things for families to do that are age appropriate for kids. So appreciate that. Thank you. As a parent of competitive swimmers, I'm inherently biased in favor of this program, of this project. I've watched my kids grow from swimming lessons to competitive swimming, and I believe this facility will continue that ability for children to experience the same as my kids have, and that's excellent. However, I fear that there's a substantial risk in the value of the aquatic center to the community if we don't follow through with key components of the original design, primarily the instructional pool. The risk of missed opportunity to maximize the value of the aquatic center by removing that key design component will limit greater strategic uses and revenues. I have to speak in favor of the instructional pool with the design considerations, as the instructional pool allows the facilitation of simultaneous use by both the swim lessons, high school boys and girls swimming, and for club. Having that simultaneous use will maximize the revenue available per hour for that facility. I think that is a key component in how we look at the revenue streams for this facility. Beyond the simultaneous use, the facility requirements for high school state and higher level competitions, the city would have missed opportunities in those economic impacts because those type of competitions would require that extra pool. Further limitations on the revenue of economic impacts to the community would be realized during the spring and summer long course seasons for club swim. The instructional pool allows for warm up and cool down for those type of competitions that has to be separate from the main pool. And we would miss out on the opportunity to bring state championships into the community, which is 300 to 400 swimmers over a 3 to 4 day period. This is a good project. It's fantastic. And if we can keep it moving, at least keep those design considerations till we get to final bidding, that at least allows some opportunity there to take that 10% contingency, work that down, and see if we can come up with that extra money. So appreciate you guys taking the opportunity and the support for the additions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Nancy Nelson Hutton, and I am the Vice President of the Wahoo's Board of Directors. A lot of people don't necessarily even know we have a club team here in Grand Forks, but we've grown our number to just shy of 100 here today, and coincidentally, our short course season is starting this evening while we're here. So I look forward to seeing what it looks like at the Hislop when I get done. So I want to thank you again for this opportunity and the commitment to this amazing project. Getting it done right is very, very important. As you've all noted, we can't really go back and fix some things once it's completed. I have no doubt that the leadership in this room will get it done, and I have no doubt that this will be a multi-use facility that will outlive me. So I look forward to my children and my grandchildren getting to use this facility. For those of you who may not know, the Wahoos are a competitive USA swim club. Ranges from 6 to 18 are our kids' ages in our portion. So we also have a master's program, we have a college club program, but I'm mainly talking about just the 6 to 18 competitive group. So this new aquatic center, what could it do for us? Number one, we have 100 kids right now, and we've been battling COVID, lack of swimming lessons, having to play catch up. We don't have Red Rivers Pool, we don't have Central's Pool, and soon we will not have the Hislop. We will soon lost 28 short course lanes and the only 50-meter pool in our area. That's a huge blow. What I'm excited about is the new build would add 24 approximately, depending on the widths, short course lanes back. It would give us a 50-meter pool. And if we include the warm-up or cool-down pool, the lesson pool, whatever name we want to call it, what that does for us is we no longer have to only bid, and that by bid I'm talking club, not high school. We did, last year we did short course state. We brought in about 300 kids, 10 and under. So it was too big to do the 12 and under, so they split it up. So we brought that in. We also run probably 4 to 6 short course meets every year, bringing in anywhere, depending on the weather, 5 to 8 teams, maybe 100 to 200 kids. That's short course. Long course, we can, I'm going to give you an example of where we went this summer. So we went to Sioux Falls. They have a major long course meet, which needs the cool down pool. That meet, they cap it out at 25 teams and approximately 500 kids. This is a 4-day meet where everybody's staying in Sioux Falls' hotels, eating their food, and generating revenue for their facility because every kid and every team that comes pays a facility fee to that pool and to that facility just to show up at the meet. That's on top of what they pay for us to be able to hold the meet. So to be able to have a large course meet would be amazing. We used to get the Canadians down a lot to our meets. We don't anymore. They don't do short course. International Community only does the 50-meter pool long course. To be able to have that economic revenue come back down. So when I was in Sioux Falls, I took note, there were 8 states and Canada brought teams down, and there was a wait list of approximately 6 other teams that didn't get in because they max out right around that 500. We could do that very easily, and we would definitely host those meets. We also host some small long course meets that we can do without having to have the cool down pool. We host those now at the Hislop, but it's limited because of seating capacity, deck capacity, where we can put people. So the ability for us to be able to host those meets depends on that pool. We're also very dependent on that pool for lessons. So UND is a major contributor for swim lessons. If you have young kids, you know what it means to get up at midnight to try and log on and try and get one of those spaces before they're gone in 3 minutes, and you're on the wait list for the next one or months to come. You wouldn't know it looking at me, but I actually have a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old, and I spend a lot of time getting up at midnight to try and get in swim lessons anywhere. For my 4-year-old, I've battled it for my 8-year-old, and luckily she's swimming with the Wahoos right now tonight. So I just want to thank you again. This is going to be an amazing facility no matter what happens, but I do believe you have one opportunity to get that pool in economically feasible timing. You cannot add it after the fact, and it would handcuff us greatly in our ability to be able to put on these long course meets for USA swim teams. So they have their own state, region, zone, and national meets that you compete for. And I think Grand Forks would be well positioned to compete for those. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Bochensky and members of the council. My name is Kat Poole, and I have been a resident of Grand Forks since 2011. The importance of a training pool cannot be understated, in this case of both instructional learning and recreational usage. While attending college at UND, I lifeguarded at the Hislop Pool, as well as taught lessons. Adequate space to teach little swimmers was scarce but ever so important. Most young swimmers need to practice in a shorter distance pool, not to mention like shorter height, little ones, in warmer temperature waters, and only having a 50-meter chillier pool would challenge this. I also have been a member of the North Dakota Masters Club for the past 2 years. This past summer, I drove down to Fargo to compete in the Fargo Fly-In. It was incredible to be able to see and utilize both the competition pool as well as the training pool for warm-up and cool-down. A training pool would help us meet regulations for hosting sanctioned meets, as well as swimming lessons to conduct during those meets, and would bring more visitors into our community through hosting more Masters meets. Lastly, I'd like to reiterate my concern from before. The importance of a training pool cannot be understated. As we live in an area prone to winter conditions, having an aquatic facility that meets our community's needs year-round is invaluable. Having over 10 years of lifeguarding experience and 5 years of swim instructor experience, having swam at choice pools personally, and knowing the limited space at the Y, knowing the Hislop pool will be removed in the near future, knowing that the plethora of swimmers and aquatic groups that exist here in Grand Forks, there will not be enough adequate aquatic space for recreational learning and skill development if a training pool is not included in the plans for the original build. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Buczynski and President Sandy and council members. My name is Karma Hansen. I'm the coordinator for Safe Kids Grand Forks, and I wasn't going to say anything this evening because I do have another meeting I need to get to, but I want to speak again to the instructional pool because there's a lot of talk about competition and people who come and are competitive swimmers, and that's great. But what I want to talk about is this. The American Academy of Pediatrics came out with a position statement that says that all children should have some type of water safety instruction or swim lessons. It doesn't need to be just about the strokes and the diving and that kind of thing, but swim water safety. There's 5 key components that kids need to learn in order to be able to survive in water. And by age 5, all kids should have access to that. Safe Kids promotes that all the time. We talk with our pediatricians and our family med doctors about it. We talk about it in our newsletters and on our social media. And the comments that I get on my social media posts is, that's a great recommendation. There's not enough space to get that here in our community. Our kids don't have enough access to water and to pools that can accommodate that. I will tell you that the #1 cause of death for children with autism is drowning. We have a large number of kids that are on the autism spectrum that need that one-on-one instruction, that pool would offer a huge advantage to them in that it's a different temperature than the competitive pool, which is at cooler temps. It would allow for those kids to have that access and to be able to tolerate those swim lessons. The other thing is it would allow the instructors to be able to have access to spend more time in that place as well. I want you to think about water safety things and how many of you in here are still continuing to play football at your age. Not a lot. Now I want you to think, raise your hand if you fish, canoe, paddleboard, go out on a pontoon, go swimming, go diving, right? Water safety or water activities are something that people can participate in their lifetime. People retire so they can go fishing, right? And they don't need to be avid competitive swimmers, but they need to have access to water safety and to swim lessons. And that starts at an early age. And again, I go back to that before age 5 recommendation. So I really, really implore you to not think of this instructional pool as an add-on, but as a basic piece that needs to get into that plan, because we can't go back and add it later. And I think we're missing the boat if we don't get that in there. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think we'll wrap up the aquatics, and now we'll be ready for our pickleball champion here. I don't think today would have been a great day to play pickleball outdoors. I think you'd be blown away, let alone the ball.
So in the interest of time, as Todd's finding my PowerPoint, just take this opportunity to thank you for a chance to bring some information to you folks. I'm John Jeffrey. I'm one of the directors of the board for Grand Cities Pickleball Club. I'm hoping to do just a couple of things. Is she going to go here?
Just do the.
Whoops. What did we do?
I'll just have you do the. Just do the arrows.
Okay, I'll do the arrows. All right, just the arrows. Down, right?
Down.
Okay, good.
Going down.
So, all right, so I know it's already 7 o'clock, so I'm going to go fast here. You get 6 minutes and I'm done. Going to do two things. Talk about our club a little bit because I think this is one opportunity to explain kind of where we've been and how we got here and why we have a room full of people and that we are, active. And then also just to support the fact that, pickleball is in this design and why that's a good decision. So here we go. First, about the club. We've been around actually prior to 2018. I think folks were hitting pickleballs 14 or somewhere in there. 18, we actually got a tax ID number and a bank account and started electing people to a club. Our membership grew from 22 just to 24 now, from 70 members to 270 members. We got broad range of adults, 18 to 84, that are all dues-paying members. And because of that growth in the number of members and the fact that we have tournaments and we're involved and that I'm a retired attorney and worry about stuff, I suggested that we actually incorporate, so we did that. This past February, we incorporated as a nonprofit in North Dakota, also proceeded with our application to get tax exempt status. Not only has our club grown, but this slide shows in the area the growth in pickleball. You'll see Fargo, Moorhead, Bemidji, Crookston, Park Rapids. All of these clubs have had significant growth in the last years. Here's what we do as a club. Our primary purpose is to organize weekly drop-in play for members. This is, in a bit, I'll kind of explain why that's important, but this is kind of a key if you play pickleball. We also do a couple of social events, some ugly sweater contest around Christmas or something like that. And we do sponsor 3 tournaments. Those have grown over time. The last few tournaments, we've run a spring, summer, and fall one. We've had 180 participants. We've had 1,700 folks registered since 21, and it's over a big area. We also do a lot of community outreach because we're interested in furthering the sport. The next slide here is just a graphic showing where folks have come from when they registered. And not that we're the hotbed of pickleball, but you know how it is. It's friends, family, people that know people. But I will say this, we have Troy Bowman and his wife have organized these tournaments over the years, and they have a well-oiled machine now, and that really increases participation. Things start on time, things move along, everybody understands how the thing works, and they communicate well, they get folks registered. That's had something to do with the success of our tournaments. Our outreach involves working with companies, or in this case, here's an example. Recently, we worked with the city of Grand Forks in their health and wellness program and showed folks how to play pickleball. We've also donated to local charities. We take our spring proceeds from the tournament. Here, we gave $4,000 to Special Olympics. The year before that, we gave a little over $7,000 to the Red River Track program. We also worked with the Blue Zone Project. I didn't know this until Nicole Benson explained it to me what a Blue Zone was, but as you know, that's like an area where folks live to be 102 or something, and it's primarily because of the fact that they have better health and they have more connectivity. And pickleball really, that's its strength. It's promoting connections in the community. And then we've done demonstrations and invited folks to play at the Grand Cities Street Fair the last couple of years. So here's the reasons why, you know, I know pickleball's in the plan. Our goal is that it remains in the plan and that come 2027 or sometime before the good Lord takes me, that there's going to be 8 pickleball courts there. And this is going to be the best thing since sliced bread. So one, voter expectation, and Councilman, was it Friedolfs? Thank you. We did generate concern. We didn't really want to go foo-fong on you, you know, but we were somewhat concerned that, you know, we were going to be an alternate or that this was going to be built somewhere down the line. So just like the folks with the swimming pool, you know, this is an opportunity for the community as a whole to do something really good. Now, I know it involves risk. It involves tons of numbers, a lot of money, but we've done this before. And, you know, this is going to be a good thing. And so anyway, voter expectations, I guess I don't have to tell you, you know, it was part of the original proposal. We got our membership all excited. They didn't show up at meetings, but I tell you, they all, you know, not only did they vote, but they got their buddies to vote and their friends to vote. And so we think we helped make this thing pass. Second thing is we need those indoor courts. As folks have commented, you know, the Hislop is going away. In the Hislop, we had 9 courts. We use those 9 courts 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursdays from 5 to 8 p.m., and Saturday from 9 till noon. And here's a picture of those courts. As you can see, not the best configuration. We got a bazillion lines because of the track going on. You'll notice those things that look like giant things of cardboard. They're actually giant things of cardboard because we hauled them out there. You know, every time we set up all the nets, we set up all the cardboard, and we probably could have done more nights of this. But, you know, the board, we're kind of, you know, masochistic. And so instead of getting more people to take care of the desk, all the board members just take care of the desk. And pretty soon it got to the point where we were just kind of maxed out. Also, if you look at this picture, you'll see some folks way in the distance kind of, you know, standing on the side. And that's not spectators. That's folks like me and others waiting to play. So, pickleball is normally played with doubles, so that means there's 4 people on a court. So if you do the math, 9 courts, 36 people, there's roughly, you know, another dozen people standing there. So on any given night, we got at least 50 folks that want to use 9 courts. So there's no shortage of demand in the Grand Forks area, and we think that that's going to continue to grow. Oh, by the way, we got a little bit smarter. Instead of standing in line, then we figured out, you know, putting paddles in groups of 4. And so as you're waiting, you can still visit with folks. And when your next group is up, they pick up the 4 paddles. And if they're yours, then you take up the next court. Actually, this is, well, I'm going to get to that in a minute. How many minutes I got left? 2, right? So on the current state, in the outdoor arrangements, we're pretty strong. Grand Forks and East Grand Forks have 23 courts that are available right now outside. These are all dedicated. You know, we don't have to worry about sharing them with guys shooting basketball or whatever. Indoor, we have the challenge, right? So right now, Play It has 4 indoor courts that are dedicated that they just opened up. And then we have 9 multi-use courts. But if you look at the bullet points below that, those are limited. So Play It has these 4 courts, but they're shared with basketball and volleyball. So as we were trying to get nights available and make arrangements for our people to play, we went from 4 nights a week, you know, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, to just Tuesday, Thursday, because Play It doesn't want to lock up all those extra 4 courts on the weekend. You know, they don't want to get the rest of their clientele who shoot hoops or, you know, do other things on that space that's multi-use. And for us to try to run just 4 courts, you we got way too much demand. Also, Choice offers some courts, but there's just 3 there, and you'll see that those are just morning hours, 6 a.m. to 11. So a good chunk of these folks, unlike me, are not retired, and so for them, to come in the morning to play, it just doesn't work. It's not available on the weekends. The Y also has limited time, but once again, the only weekend time for the vast majority of these folks would be from 6 to 8 p.m. On a Friday. And then finally, as you know, we know that winter's tough here, but summer's not that great for pickleball either. The outside courts are good. We like to play outside. We appreciate the fact they're there. But, if there's high winds, and it's North Dakota, right? So 95% of the time there's high winds, it rains, or this summer, with the wildfires, got folks with asthma that can't play outside. All those things, indicate that even in the summer, those 8 pickleball courts that you put together, those are going to be used. And then here's the final reason, and this is, if I sound like I'm kind of excited, because I am. So I drank the Kool-Aid, right? For those younger folks, is it Tracy or Trisha? Trisha, she has no idea what I'm talking about, right? This is Jim Jones, it's a long story, but I only have 1 minute left. So anyway, I started 2 years ago, but it was invited by Diane. You here someplace? Okay, there's Diane. She was a coworker of mine at Alaris. She tells me to come over and, join her to play pickleball. And my first thought was, this is for a bunch of old farts, right? And it's not that tough, it's a small court, it's a soft little ball, And so I will tell you this, easy to learn, right? The rules are easy, but as people get better, and Diane is very good, then it becomes very competitive. It's cheap. All you need is like $25 for a paddle, and you're off and running. And it's darn good exercise. So after the first time I played with Diane, the next morning I woke up, I looked at my body, it just was laying there, not moving, it's painful. It's very good exercise, even though it's on a smaller court, and I think that's what appeals to a lot of folks here, that unlike a treadmill or something that's painful and you just do this, you can play pickleball, and before you know it, an hour and a half or 2 hours has passed, and you've got in your steps and your exercise for the day. So folks, get excited about it for that. And then here's the final thing that I think is so important, that's hard to quantify, and this is the fact that pickleball by design is made so that people get to know each other. And this is because when you play pickleball, if I'm on the court with 3 other folks and Todd is waiting, to play, he didn't bring a partner, he just came by himself, he just got his paddle. He may have never played pickleball before in his life, but the unwritten rule is one of us is going to stand down after the game, and games are short, just 12 minutes. One of us stands down, they bring Todd on, and now Todd starts playing with us. And, if he hasn't played before, the more experienced players are going to teach him how to play. And this is why it brings people together. And I think, following the pandemic, folks were looking for connections, and this really seems to do that. So I guess in conclusion, I guess I have to conclude. In conclusion, Grand Forks has made a lot of big decisions, and I've been around here a long time. I'm 67 years old, and except for 7 years going away for school, I've lived here my whole life. And a lot of things happen because of vision and good ideas and taking some risk. And that's what this is about. It's, Mr. Phelan and all these experts are right. You're not going to know exactly what you're getting into, but you're darn close, and you just have to take the next step, get the bid process going, then you'll know really what you're dealing with regards to numbers. And I'm confident that what we're going to create here is something that, as one woman said, not only me, but my kids and my grandkids are going to be proud of. So this is an opportunity for the council and for the city to really make a big big impact on our area. So thank you for the time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wait, I'm sorry, sir? You did do a good job.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Do you mind if I ask you a couple questions?
Sure.
So you got, what you said, 270 members paying dues. What are the dues in the pickleball club?
$30 a year.
$30 a year.
Yeah.
So they're not really paying dues.
Well, I mean, they're not paying
Okay,
like
right.
Amazon dues, but
Got it.
yeah.
So if you're only paying 30, I'm morbidly curious. I'm just trying to
No, no,
understand
no,
the finances
I
on this. I thoroughly enjoy watching people play pickleball. I have no problem with pickleball. I don't have a problem with building the pickleball courts. What I don't understand is the finances of what is being proposed, because according to what we're being told, is there's potential for almost $300,000 worth of revenue from the pickleball courts to help support the facility. Yet if you're only paying $30 a year and you got 270 people, the numbers don't even remotely add up. So is your club, are those members planning on paying $1,000 a year each?
Well, so, good question, Mr. Sandy. So, the way it works right now, the $30, you're right. I mean, that's nominal. Right now, what the members were paying at Hislop is $5 per session per week. So for
Okay.
me, you know, I play 4 times, it'd be $20 a week,
Great.
$80, right?
Now I get it. Okay, so
Okay.
there are other, there's other,
Right,
there's,
right.
there's other pay other than dues.
And at Play It, going to be even more expensive, right?
sure.
So, yeah, we understand that, beautiful place comes with a price tag.
Sure.
And we think that the membership will support that.
Another quick question. Do you care where the pickleball courts are? If I built a facility across the street here and opened it up and handed you the keys and said, you guys operate it and maintain it, would you care, or does it need to be connected to this facility?
Well, so, I mean, somewhat of a loaded question, right? But
It's not meant to be loaded.
Okay.
The reason I'm asking is because I joined the Grand Forks Curling Club in 1979. I've been a dues-paying member there since my parents were paying my dues for me, and we have approximately 300 members that pay all the bills for that facility every year, and we're our own private club.
Right.
So why don't you guys want to be self-sufficient and have your own club?
Good question. I mean, we have about $30,000 in the bank right now, so if the city's saying they're going to build us a freestanding building,
I'm trying to figure out how we can get everything that we need, and I don't know, adding the $7 million for 8 pickleball courts, if we can build a Quonset somewhere for $3 million and turn over the keys to you and let you do it, would that be reasonable or no?
Okay, that'd be reasonable, but timeline, I mean, I've been going to meetings for 2 years, and we're looking at another 3 years. We lost the Hislop. I'm John Kinsler, by the way. I'm the current president of the Grand Cities Pickleball. And we struggled to find someplace to play this winter. And we negotiated, and it wasn't a lot of fun negotiating what we did to get those 2 nights. And I know you're asking the money part, but if you look at Fargo, Fargo's been building these places, and they've been adding pickleball courts, and they're outgrowing them already. They're already talking about adding 4 more pickleball courts to the buildings that they built that included pickleball courts. So Grand Forks, we could sit back and say, well, pickleball is a fad, or they can do their own building and stay behind that way, or we could go forward. We get people from Canada. We get on weekends, we get people from Bemidji all over playing.
With all due respect, I understand that.
I understand what you're asking, though.
I'm saying that I think we could get to a finished facility faster for less money if we don't have to attach it to this building.
Okay. The only issue we have is what kind of guarantees are those? I mean, we have this building in front of us right now. I mean, we could say this, and then we can come and talk about it, and you could say this isn't a part of this building, and next thing you know, 5 years, we're looking at 2030 before we get a facility or something, which is a year that has been thrown at us, you know. I get it, but there is a big group of people here that we have nothing. So that's what we're looking for, and we're excited about it, and I really think that it would really be good for Grand Forks. I really do.
Can I jump in here real quick? I think the same argument can be made for the pool, the same argument can be made for the turf. I think the idea of this being a community center that has life, that has 8-year-olds to 80-year-olds going in and out of there every day is really what makes this a community center. We do the turf, we do the pool. Without pickleball, you know, we're not going to have the energy that you just brought in here. And I think, to me, if it's truly going to be a community center, we need to have that life to it. So I, for one, you know, I understand what President Sandy's saying. That argument can be made across the board for all the different events. We could make them worse and we could put them somewhere else. But I think to be that draw and be that for the community, I would, you know, I'm going to be a huge advocate for putting it in this facility. And I think we'll get there as we get to ultimate design. But I appreciate your passion and taking the tough questions. President Sandy, you think he asked you tough questions, see what he asked me behind the scenes sometimes, man.
And we do thank you guys. I mean, we're really appreciative.
Just one
Thank
more
you.
thing. I'm the treasurer of the Grand Cities Pickleball Club. But what I want you to remember, it's not just us, the club. There is so many more people in the community
We're a
that play
small
pickleball,
percentage.
and we just help facilitate. So if you go to Optimus, 3/4 of those people aren't club members that are playing, and they're full all the time. So that's what we're looking at. That's whether you put it in the multi thing or not, pickleball's a real deal, and it's going to attract people. And they'll do other things while they're playing pickleball. They'll see the pool, they'll see they'll just come. That's what they do. We're a weird group. We get affected by it. That's just it.
All right, I appreciate it.
So should I quit while I'm ahead, or any other questions, or?
Yeah, please. All right, I just want to open it up. I know we had a couple council members that, you know, we got Children's Museum still to go. And this is obviously we don't have to have anything decided tonight, but I know certainly, Sandy, you know, you may have some broader questions, but Ms. Berg and Mr. Veen, I know you haven't had a chance to speak yet, so I wanted to give you the opportunity. So Ms. Berg, if you wanted to start, you can certainly defer if you wish as well.
No, absolutely. I am super excited that we are here today and looking at moving forward. And I think it's the projections that we're seeing for both pickleball and the instructional pool, it just makes sense to include them. And I think the instructional pool, what Carmen Hansen said about the need to educate swimmers, because you're going to be exposed to water lifelong. I think that's something that we need to continue to focus on.
Thank you, Ms. Berg. Mr. Veen, I know you probably out of this group have the most experience with architecture, engineering, CMARS, all of that. So you probably have a different perspective than all of us, and I don't expect you to encapsulate all that right now, but just give us some of your thoughts.
Well, thank you, Mayor. And I think it's really exciting what we're doing. I voted for it, and I know a lot of citizens did, and again, appreciate all the people that came out. I do have a couple of things to say. If we do this, which we are, we need to do it right. It'll never be cheaper than now to do it because everything continues to increase in price. So we got to figure out how to do it. Even if it's over our budget, I think we have to work with our partners and find other means of having the funds to do it. And I don't know where that's coming from yet. So I don't know how we fully proceed if in fact we don't. But I think we just must figure out a way to do it and take a little bit of time, because if we don't take time in the beginning, I think it'll actually end up delaying the project long term if we make change. So let's do it right the first time. I'm going to just talk about a couple quick things here. One of the things is contingencies. Contingencies are necessary because they manage risk. That's what we want to do. So I think it's irresponsible to eliminate them. But what we can do is keep contingencies in alignment with standards, and then have add alternates. If we don't use them, we can buy. We won't lose it, but just go into that perspective. I do think the owner's contingency of 3.2 and escalation of 3.8 are not in here. I don't know how we do it without having some level of those contingencies to be a part of it. So as we're putting all the numbers together, I think we're going to have to do that. The other thing on contingencies, And it is, you know, especially when you're doing estimating contingencies, you use those contingencies as the project design gets more complete, okay? Because it's just natural. It's going to get used, and if you don't, you're going to be behind. Do you know how much when we're done, are contingencies that are in the CM contract?
I don't have that offhand. I don't know, Oliver, do you have that number?
I think there's 2.5 in the construction contingency, and then you design.
Yeah, what we're proposing is a 3% construction contingency.
3%. And if that's used, who gets, it is not used, who gets that 3%?
That all remains with the city. So any unused dollars from those contingencies
Comes back to the
go
city.
back to
So
the
it-
city.
sometimes that's negotiated, and there's no right, for me, right or wrong. I just wanted to know how you could do that.
And Councilmember Bean, I think that's a good point, because on previous CMERs, we've split that 50/50. So with McGough coming in here saying that would be all to go to the city is really in our favor.
Okay. Okay. I think the one thing I also want to make sure that we do, especially in the planning, is look at not only where we are today, where we might be in the future. In other words, what can we do for expansion capability? Because this is what we're looking at for today. I don't know what the next sport is going to be 20 or 30 years from now, but something's going to come along. And so any of the spaces that we have, I think, need to be either looked at as multi-use, because they can't just be one fixed use if you can help it, so that you can adapt for the future. And then those that can't, how do you expand? And I did see some expansion in here. I'm not for sure if it was enough. One thing that's not in here really is the courts. And I would see that sometime in the next 50 years, courts or something else could be expanded, and look at that space also. And maybe the last item I wanted to talk a little bit about is drilling down on some of the costs. And the cost that probably hits me the most is knowing that we're spending, there's been some differences about when the construction costs include contingencies or don't, so how far do we go with that? But the turf facility right now, at least as I had, was $39.4 million. And that's for just a little under 100,000 square feet. And what I did was I looked at what we had spent previously or had been spent previously for the Pollard High Performance Center. And that construction initially 10 years ago was $15.7 million. And the total cost then was up somewhere about $19.5 million. And I looked at the escalation costs between that time and today, and that would put us at roughly $30 million. And I'd like to have some time to digest this, because my numbers aren't perfect. There could be some things in it, but that's cheaper with 144,000 square feet with a full football field, 61-foot ceilings, 8-lane track, 300-meter track. Something for me is just amiss here, and I don't know what it is, and I'd like to get my hands around it, because I think we've got some opportunity here. If it's different construction materials, if it's some type of a different system, I don't know what it is, but I think when we look at it, when I say we want to do it right, if there were money, if we could figure out a way to do more with less, then that's what's going to be able to get us some of the money to do the things that may not be on the table. And that's all that I'm trying to do, is figure out if that's possible. But this is the one thing that seems to be a concern for me to figure out.
Maybe I asked Oliver that. Maybe he could, give you a preliminary answer. I think maybe Oliver, Adam, I know Oliver and McGough have been involved in the Fargo turf facility. He was involved in building the NDSU football practice facility, and then obviously he's involved in this. And maybe you can just talk through kind of some of your initial thoughts in schematic design, and as we move forward to design development.
Sure. So I think the number you're referencing was the cost estimate from the last presentation, where we'd combined some of the common spaces in there too, so it's not just the turf box, but there are some common spaces that are included in that number. So it grows the space a little bit. I did look, so Fargo, they're building, or I guess we've just finished a very similar facility for their indoor soccer. That was about a $31 million project when it was initially bid. Escalating that up to the point where we would be starting the ASIC, we're thinking is probably about $39 million, and that was a pre-engineered metal building structure. I guess it'd be very similar to this turf building, just in a pre-engineered building. And then the NDSU's football practice facility, that's about a $50 million project, or it was when it was completed back in 22, I believe. There again, the use of a pre-engineered metal building. And that's actually one of the things that we're investigating right now, is looking at the different structures between a conventional steel and a pre-engineered building, just weighing out some of the overall costs with them, because there are some, we just want to make sure that we make a good decision there, that what looks good up front actually pays off at the end of the day.
Well, and thank you, and I appreciate those comments. I think one of the things that I look at is what is the value engineering. As you get into it, there's more than one way to look at these things, or to design them, and what are those opportunities, because they exist usually in everything from mechanical to electrical to plumbing systems and all the different systems you can, which really is the sensible way of looking at a project. You don't need to do them all, but you do need to look at what is there, what opportunities might there be. I think I heard give an example that I think was at Montana State was building a brand new indoor football field with a track for $25 million, as an example. Now, I don't know what that building structure even looks like, to be honest with you, but I just want to make sure when we deliver this project, it's given us the best value we can get. And I think that's the questions I have.
Yep, and I will add, to date, we've looked at about 100 different value engineering items to kind of get that initial push, and there's still a lot more that we're investigating.
And maybe we can spend some time to it. The other thing about the Pollard Center is it's got 61-foot high ceilings, I believe, versus the 41-foot here. So there is some differences in these facilities, and I know every foot costs money. I worked on the Alaris Center when that was originally designed, and it was not cheap, but, so, anyway, thank you.
All for now. President Sandy, any further comments for this point? What are we looking for tonight? Do you want some sort of preliminary anything, or just?
I think Mayor Buczynski, Council President Sandy, well, look, just looking for some initial feedback. We wanted to give the users an opportunity in more of a work session situation, and then we would plan to bring this item back for City Council further review and potential decision-making next week, Monday. And just hearing what we heard tonight, and along with the users, and I know the users wanted to give you some feedback in advance of bringing back any action to City Council.
President Sandy, you want to add something?
Well, I have one quick question first before I get into the 28 other questions that I have. Can somebody explain to me how this facility is going to operate?
Yeah, I think we got George there. George, would you like to come up and hit on that from a operations standpoint? You probably weren't ready to be brought up today, but here you are, so.
Thank you, Mayor, President Council Sandy, members of the council. Yeah, I think we're working through, Mr. Gosted's had an operations agreement. Park District is intending to operate the facility. Our goal will be to operate it similar to, we do our ice arenas, more of on a rental basis. So it would be different from Choice Health Fitness, which is membership based. So working with the individual user groups and having rental agreements with them, and then they would rent the facility and operate it similar we do with Border Blades, Grand Forks Youth Hockey Association.
So, unless you're part of a club, there really isn't an opportunity for you to utilize the facility.
No, there'd be other opportunities there as well. So same thing with our ice arenas. If you and I wanted to go play hockey, we can rent it for a birthday party for our kids or anything like that. So it'd be the same as a new facility. Yep.
Sure, but essentially you're renting the facility. if you want to play pickleball, if I can't just drop in and with my paddle, my $25 paddle, and play pickleball, I have to find out what time the group is playing pickleball, or I have to rent a pickleball court.
Yeah, there'd be rentals, just like we do at Choice, where we rent the tennis courts. It'd be the similar there for the pickleball courts, where you could rent a pickleball court for a period of time.
Can you drop in?
I think we're planning on, dropping
Mike's,
in. Yep.
Okay, well, that's exciting. And the swimming pool, you're going to be able to drop in and swim when it's open swimming?
Yeah, I think we got swimming lessons, obviously, would be one item that we'd want to program around and schedule for that. Whether it be
5,000 swimming lessons sessions throughout the year, 5,000 participants in swimming lessons.
Yeah, I'd have to maybe ask my colleagues to talk.
I
that
did the
specific
math.
question.
5,040 different people taking a session of swimming.
I think you
It's
got to take more than one session to learn to
Right,
swim,
yeah.
so you're going to have probably multiple uses.
Right. It's a lot of swimming lessons.
I learned it in the first try. My dad just threw me in, but
Right.
some people might need more than one.
But for the turf, though, the turf is meant for the soccer clubs and the football club.
Yep, and I think we've also looked at lacrosse and the school district and others to use it. It can be sectioned off where you can rent the whole facility, the whole turf for a high school football game, for example, or a high school soccer game or something like that, but it also could be sectioned off in thirds. So there's other possibilities there where it's rented to the user groups, or other possible purchase or programming options where we would try and fill that space as best we could as well with other events and
I think to President Sandy's point, you'd like to see open gym, open soccer, open different types of hours.
I think that's what the people had the expectation when they were voting for this facility, that there would be some opportunity to actually use it rather than having to join the Wahoo Swim Club. So, and I get that you can drop in swimming when they're swimming, but I don't know. Maybe I want to go run around on kick a soccer ball.
Yeah, I think we're definitely open to all sorts of opportunities like that with open drop-ins to utilize the facility. Our goal as a park district would be to maximize facility usage. I think when we were looking at operations and budgeting numbers, we were focused primarily on the rental groups with some of those. But yeah,
Sure.
knowing that there would be drop-in opportunities as well.
I don't want to blow the budget just by letting random people in, but.
Sure.
Okay, Mr. Hillier, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm going to go back to pickleball. Again, I'm a fan of the fact that people my age are starting to get a little more exercise. That's good. Again, we built a new curling club 7 years ago, and with the in-kind donations, we were to have paid cash, it was about $1.2 million, and you could easily put 8 pickleball courts in there. If we put $2 million into a facility, we could have a facility with multiple courts, with locker rooms, with whatever, and there's $5 million of the dollars that Mr. Veem was just talking about to help us pay for some of the other things. I recognize that we want everybody. It's great. I want everything too, but at some point we're going to have to look at the budget and decide whether we can do it or not. And operationally speaking, if we simply built it for the club and handed it over to their 501c3, they could operate it themselves because they have people paying dues, and their $30 a year would probably cover the heating bill. 270 people at $30 a year. Okay. Based upon what I'm hearing tonight, the most important thing that we're going to do in this facility is build a heated pool for swimming lessons. I appreciate the fact that the Wahoos and the club are here and they're advocating for their swim club. I get it. I'm not against swimmers, so don't take this the wrong way, because I'm not against swimmers. But there are 100 competitive swimmers in the city of Grand Forks, and we're talking about spending $40 million to build a competitive pool for 100 people. I just cannot figure that out. If we should do anything, we should eliminate the competitive pool and put in the swimming pool for the kids to get swimming lessons. If we can figure out the money to do it all, I don't have a problem with it. But we have to put in the swimming pool for swim lessons. Mayor. Going back to Mr. Veen's question, is the ceiling height in the facility tall enough to actually have a soccer game? Can we have a competitive soccer game? Is the height tall
Maybe
enough?
I'll have one of the designers.
I just a yes or no is fine. Thank you. That's great. Appreciate it. Okay. What else?
That was an easy one.
Yeah,
Well done.
I'll skip a whole bunch of these. So Mr. Gosted, who's giving you direction on what terms we should have in this agreement with UND and the Park District and the school district?
It was, I don't think I took direction necessarily from the administration. We got together, the attorneys, with respect to what the agreement would look like. And the thought process, the school district expressed concern. They wanted to make sure that their use of facilities wouldn't be upset by the current agreement. So what we tried to do was to memorialize what was currently existing between the school district, particularly the Park District, uses those facilities not as much. So that was the direction that we were trying to solve.
I'm concerned about the voluntary termination clause, specifically with the University of North Dakota, because that wasn't contemplated when we gave them the $2 million, the $2 million loan for the softball facility.
It can't be. We added that today, that there cannot be a termination as long as there's any amount owing under that line.
I understand, but based upon the discussion we had, that agreement was going to go on in perpetuity, and we were going to have access to their facilities. And if they pay back the loan in 3 years because some additional donor gives them a couple $1 million, and then they say, hey, we're done with this nonsense, then we're just out of it. So I would like to see a minimum, 50 years, no termination.
I can certainly go back to the parties and make that request.
Thank you. Appreciate it. The only other, so if the facility is going to be specifically for rentals and presumably for tournaments, Mr. Weigel, who is going to be out trying to get these tournaments?
I think that's a conversation I've had with Ms. Rigg. I've had it with Mr. Phelan. I've had it with a little bit of everybody. And if I could, I'm going to kind of
after you
hijack some of your thoughts. I've said many times I would challenge our soccer folks, and I'd challenge our pickleball folks. I've challenged I'm not going to challenge youth football because he used to be my coach. I don't want to run laps after this. But it comes down to this. I understand the day-to-day operations, the day-to-day use of the facility. But this community is going to be successful. This facility is going to be successful based on what you all bring in for tournaments, what you all bring in from people outside the city of Grand Forks. And so that'd be my challenge to you. If you're doing 2 tournaments, I want to see 8. If you're doing 3 tournaments, I want to see 10. Because that benefits the city of Grand Forks. That benefits the facility. That helps pay for all of it. And if you haven't gotten with Julie and her folks over there, you need to, because once this facility is ready, we need to start pumping the tournaments through it. And I'd hand it off to Julie for whatever she has to say.
Thank you, Councilmember Weigel, Mayor Bochensky, Council President Sandy. We are very committed to selling and promoting this facility. As soon as we get the go-ahead with designs, we'll start promoting it. Obviously, we can't actually start filling it, and probably till a shovel goes in the ground, but tournaments are making commitments 2, 3, 4, 5 years out. So we need to start the ground running as soon as possible to fill it. We are committed through our enticement program, which is cash sponsorship funding through either bid proposals or starting up homegrown tournaments. We're committed through our services program. We're attempting to add another staff member, budget provided, of course. But you're absolutely right. We cannot do it without the work of the local groups, whether that's starting a new tournament or bidding on tournaments. They won't do it without that local delegation. So we're there. We will provide all the support. We work with a lot of these groups. I can tell you, we work with the soccer club on their summer tournament. The Wahoos have a long history of bringing meets into our community, national level meets, regional, and state level meets. So we're really excited to work with these groups, but it is a lot of work, and most of these people are parent volunteers. And I know from the other side of it as a parent volunteer how much work it is, but we will need those partnerships to make it successful, but we're ready to hit the ground running.
Can I add one thing? I think I would also like to challenge the park district, because growing up as an athlete, many of you know I was a hockey player in my former days, but having that ability that open rink, it was outdoor rinks when I was a kid, but that open soccer play, that open pickleball where you come in for $5, open swim, fill that extra time that's not rented out with community availability so kids can go in. You might be a soccer player that's 10 years old. You're going to play with a bunch of 18-year-olds or adults, and you're going to learn the game speed a lot quicker. That's where you really develop skills outside of those practice. So I would really challenge you to find a way to make that work so that the community can use this facility to its maximum. So if I can add that, and then please continue, Mr. Weigel.
I think that's all, Mayor. I think it's super important to get those tournaments in Grand Forks. The one thing that I read recently, and I've talked about it multiple times, is the youth sports industry is larger than the NFL as far as how much money is being spent. I know that because I was just in Chaska, Minnesota for a soccer tournament a couple weeks ago. We've played youth football. We haven't swam. I played pickleball for the first time a couple weeks ago. So if there is kids in youth sports, we need to get it here in Grand Forks. It's important. I've even thought, how can we support the budget to add a position that's their only job is to go after these youth sports tournaments for the city of Grand Forks. When this comes in under budget, because I have a feeling that Todd and Dan and the mayor and everybody else involved, all the engineers, it'll come in under budget. How do we also put some of that money when it comes in under budget to some of our existing facilities? I call it the Spiderweb Park, but Bringwat Park is a fantastic park, but you're trying to host a tournament there, and all you have is on-street parking with maybe 50 other parking spots. It's not ideal. So how do we pump up some of these other facilities so that you could have a summer tournament, play indoors at the new facility, play outdoors at existing facilities, but also put some money into some of these other facilities to make them better as well. So.
All right, any further comment for this evening? Ms. Lunsky, please, and then we'll go to you, Ms. Osowski, next.
Are we going to add any swim lessons? So what we have at Hislop right now that we're losing and what we have at the new facility, will it be the same amount of kids that can go through there every night?
I don't know if that's a question for George. Obviously, having them separated, we would have the ability to gain hours when other swim usages are there, but is that contemplated, or was the numbers of the 5,000 swim lessons kind of just translated from Hislop? Do you know off the top of your head?
Yeah, not off the top of my head, but I think the instructional pool would be the big helper there, right? We'd be limited with the meets with the 50-meter pool, and the instructional pool would just add that many more swimming lessons. So I think any more swimming lesson questions, we'd have to turn over to Lisa here.
Yeah, I think that with the instructional pool, there's obviously, you can do more swimming lessons because, like they've said before, you can do them simultaneously. As the swim teams or club teams are practicing, you can use that instructional pool to have the swim lessons. If you don't have it, then you become limited and you basically have probably what you have right now because you're just replacing the Hislop. So there's probably still a wait list. I mean, you could try to finagle some more in, but the instructional pool would be key.
So we'll still probably be asking parents to wake up at midnight to register kids?
Potentially, yes.
I think the thing that makes me sad is the lower income kids are never going to get the opportunity to have that water safety.
We do have scholarships through the park district for some of those.
But their parents still have to wake up at midnight, right?
I think no matter how much you make a year, you can wake up at midnight at times. Nobody wants to. My bedtime's getting earlier by the years, but anyway. Do you have anything else, Ms. Lunsky? All right, Ms. Osowski, please.
I was wondering if maybe Okay, so I understand the tax that was voted on is a sales tax for economic development. That's what it is. Because I do even see that in the agreement with the Children's Museum. But I guess my question is like, do we have to build this extravagant building? Like, could we maybe put in, the instructional pool and then help Central fix their pool? I think, what do they need, like $3 million to, or maybe help the school district fix that? And then we wouldn't need to put in, 50-meter lanes into our new building, and that would maybe save us some money. I agree that maybe we should look at other facilities or something else that we can do with pickleball. We have almost the entire Columbia Mall that is just sitting there rotting. Like, how much would it cost for us to turn Macy's into, 16 pickleball courts instead of 8 added on to this building? I do think, though, that one thing that our community does need is indoor turf. We do not have indoor turf in Grand Forks. We have the High Performance Center from UND, and then we have the Alara Center. So I know that there is a big need in our community for an indoor turf facility, so I understand that. But does it all need to be grouped in this one location? The Children's Museum could go back to the land where it was donated. I feel like we could save a lot of money if we weren't just trying to build, this corridor. And I think we have a lot of unused buildings and facilities that maybe just need some maintenance. And I understand that Hislop is going down and that's affecting the pickleball and the swimming, but I don't like hearing that the city then is responsible for providing these amenities because UND took them down. But $140 million total to build all of this stuff is a lot of money, and I think that we could get the community exactly what they're looking for if we weren't trying to, build this destination corridor and maybe just try to split up some of the things. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussions on the sports complex for tonight, or we'll move on to the Children's Museum?
Mayor Bochensky and Council President Sandy, I wanted to give Dan, there is an updated presentation. The Children's Museum staff and board members are here. The PowerPoint basically provides that they've made significant progress. They've made significant progress on their capital campaign. They've made progress on their operating revenues over expenses. And I think at this point in time, they would like to further seek your input on moving forward at the Alara Center site. And so I'd ask Dan to remind you what agreements we have in place with the Children's Museum, what would it take to adapt to this particular site, and then I know they're here for any questions and we'll provide answers as needed after Dan is done.
Right. Mayor, President Sandy, and council members, the agreement that has been approved already is before you. It was posted earlier, I think yesterday. It calls for some funding for construction. Again, it's on a reimbursement basis only, and there are conditions that they have to assure that they've got the funding to do the project. They also have to have certification from their architect and engineer that they've reached that threshold as far as the percentage of completion throughout the project. So the money isn't being spent until they're actually moving dirt and actually building. And then there's also some financing thereafter. Again, there are contingencies in place for that. And those are on an annual basis as well. I think we've talked about that agreement already. What we also posted was in the event that the council move forward with allowing them to move to the location close to the where the aquatic center is going to be, The changes are redlined are things that I thought about. I have not presented that agreement, obviously, to the Children's Museum at this point, but things to, really what it does is it removes the current lease that they have with Alter, and there'd be a new ground lease that would be between the JDA and the Children's Museum for that 4.5 acre tract of land. Some of the thought process they have with respect to the ground lease, obviously, it's going to be a long-term lease because they'll be building the structure on that property. Some of the things that I've talked about with respect to the Children's Museum representatives is that, you know, I heard it earlier today, I'm thinking about the contingencies. What happens if this is not successful? What happens to that building? The thought process, and I've already at least mentioned it to them, that building would then have to be turned back over to the JDA at that point. Nobody's hoping that would occur, but we'd have those type of provisions in the agreement, the ground lease agreement. And they wouldn't be start on the building unless and until we have that ground lease in place. So again, what we presented to you in the red line are some of the changes that would have to be made to the agreement to account for this ground lease between the JDA and the Children's Museum for their construction on that particular site. Again, I have not started to draft that ground lease because I didn't want to get too far ahead without some sort of indication that's the direction the City Council wanted to go. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have a couple representatives I see there, but maybe, I think we got Ms. Mayor there, maybe just speak to what it would mean to move over to this location versus the current location. And I think we want to at least hear from the group that this is a move that you really are looking forward to and want to be a part of, and how this gets you closer to construction.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Berchinski and Council President Dana Sandy and all the council members for having us. I'm Katie Mayer, the Executive Director of the Grand Forks Children's Museum. And I've got Alex Reichert here too. Board
Thank
President.
you. Yes, Board President.
Do you want to put up our presentation at all, or just, oh, here we go.
Here we go. What are you? I think that one's.
All right.
And were you supplied with this prior? So I don't know if you want to, it's getting late, if you want to just stand for questions, or, I mean, it's, I think that the slide presentation gives a 30,000-foot view of what we're looking at and where we are currently. What we're looking for from the city is a go or no-go sort of decision, because we're on hold right now, given and waiting for your decision. So if we could have some indication at least where you're leaning, that would be very helpful to us.
Oh, I appreciate that. And I think ultimately it's do we want this incorporated at the location, and then, you know, some probably basic terms of what the lease would look like. And I mean, I get that. We can't string you along, but I mean, I guess give us the indication that this is the site you would prefer to be at, I guess.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
I think that it makes the most sense for us. I think it makes the most sense for the community. Both locations are fantastic. This was the original location that we were looking at when we were approached years ago to start this project, and I think it makes sense both financially and from an economic development to have us all in the same place.
Sounds good. Do we have any comments? Anybody, council, want to give initials to President Sandy, please? And then we'll...
Yeah, thank you. Just for formal clarification, you're still planning to fundraise for the Destination Playground, correct?
Yes.
That is correct.
Right,
That
so
is the
that
partnership
isn't,
we want to have.
that isn't falling on the city, that's still in your backyard. And is it a reasonable assumption that after you break ground, because you're a nonprofit, you can still take donations and to help with operations and or your, what am I trying to say? Your
endowment.
Thank you,
Yes.
your endowment, yeah.
Yes, we'll continue to build on that endowment and continue to fundraise for future operations.
Yeah, it's certainly our plan. We thank you very much for the money that you've already committed to the project, but it would be our plan that this would be self-sustaining, that we wouldn't be looking for any money from the city for operations. So that's our
But to that end, there is a contemplation of a cost for the lease. I think that we have people, pickleball folks and swimming folks and turf folks that aren't out raising money to build their own facility, and you're going through the process and have already raised millions of dollars.
28
And
million.
yeah, thank you, and we'll continue to do that. I don't think it's reasonable for the city to then burden them with a lease when all of the other groups are getting their space without having to pay a formal lease. So I would make the recommendation that we move forward with a $1 annual lease for the land.
Is that a motion for
That is
recommendation?
a formal motion for recommendation.
All right, for the council. We got a motion and a second. All right. Well, that was easy. Do we want to have further discussion? Any other members? I think you did a great job with the presentation. I think a lot of the questions that we had were really answered in that presentation when it came to operations, when it came to sort of your design, and it's I think far beyond conceptual, but you need to know the exact location, similar to what we're doing with the sports complex, to get into that final design phase. And I know you've already got some numbers back on construction, so the process is certainly developed a long way over the years. Appreciate all the work that's gone into it to get to this point, because I know Alex still has a pretty good head of hair, but he's lost a few hair molecules over the years from this project, and just the dedication. I think we look at this and we think about this project. You put a lot, and that board's put work in pro bono from the start, and this isn't. No one's getting rich off this, other than the minds of the children in this community. If all goes the way we want it to go, so thank you for that work.
Mr. Mayor, if I would. I'd be remiss if we didn't mention that the Full Steam Ahead pop-up children's museum is going on today at the Grand Forks Curling Club. They've filled the whole curling rink with multiple different displays and activities for the young people, and everyone should stop in and check it out. I stopped this afternoon. It's really amazing. It really is, and I think it's just a small glimpse into what's to come in the future.
It really is. It's just the work that goes into that is a lot, because we don't have a facility, and you should all really go look at it. It is unbelievable. And this is just something temporary that we were able to do with a few volunteers.
Countless hours of volunteer work, and everything at this museum, that is the pop-up museum, is locally fabricated. From the 6 miles of packaging tape that created tunnels for kids to crawl through, and the excitement and joy and educational experience it will bring to our community is just amazing. I mean, there were volunteers at the curling club till midnight for the last 4 or 5 days putting this together. So it is well worth it. I encourage you all to stop by or contact me. I'll give you a private tour if you'd like.
Well, any of those volunteers that needed swim lessons, they would already have been awake to be able to sign up for them. So that would have been great. All right. Anybody further comment? I know Mrs. Selsky, do you have any further comments or any comments you want to make? Please.
I guess I have lots of comments on the Children's Museum, but one thing that I would like to just ask for clarity also, whose idea was it to move out there? Because I heard from the Children's Museum it was the mayor's, and I'm hearing from the mayor or other people that that's where you guys want to be. I just want to know exactly whose idea it was to move out there, and how you got Altru to donate the land, and what's your plan with that land if you're renting our land for $1, I guess.
I can talk a little bit on the genesis of that. I mean, this goes back to when I first came into office, and we had worked with President Sandy as well, and we had originally looked at this as being a good location without the concept of even the sports complex being there originally. I know the board had worked with Altru, ended up with the other land, and then I know Altru and some others had met with the board and said, well, what does this look like if you go over here? And you guys had looked at that. So I think it was really a team effort as far as looking at potentially making that move. I don't think anyone made that in a silo, but maybe you can add some more context to that.
Yeah, I think the original idea was we'd put it anywhere. We didn't care. I mean, somebody want to give us a building, somebody want to give us a place, we'd put it there. And this has definitely morphed into a really world-class museum. But we were originally looking at the Alaris site. That's where we first were looking. And then we were given a donation of land, and there was some consternation among the group. Should we move over there? And the decision was ultimately made, yes, we should move over there. And then I think in discussions with the city, with Altru, who at this time was our biggest benefactor, they really saw the vision. And I think they came in as well and said, look, we know that you've got this land. We potentially could monetize that land and give you the money if you move over to where the city is. And so it helps us in our fundraising, and I really, really think it helps us with visibility to be not only next to the interstate along 42nd, but also next to the major sports facilities.
I guess you all know that I disagree with this move 100%. I think the city is getting in way over their heads, even with this whole turf and aquatic center. And then at the end of the day, even if you guys fail operationally and that building and the Children's Museum gets given to the JDA or has to be forfeited to the JDA, I mean, us as a city, we are probably going to have to pay to keep it going. I mean, we're not just going to let an empty building sit there. I think that, you know, the other thing is you could probably even sell me on one little project after another little project, but this is all going to go on at once. I mean, we need to make sure that we are not getting in over our heads as a city and where this money is going to come from, because from the numbers that I'm adding up, it's way more than $100 million where we can bond, you know, and we're pulling out of X, Y, and Z funds, and I'm not just talking about the Children's Museum, I apologize, to fund this, you know, legacy corridor. It is really making me nervous, especially, not so much even the building of it, but operationally. And I'm nervous that our taxpayers are going to end up footing a bigger bill than what they voted for last year with the 1%. And so I disagree with you guys moving to that corridor, only because I don't want it to end up being a city-owned museum. And it makes me really nervous walking into all of these projects with, you know, $140 million that we're talking about, including part of the Children's Museum, now a land lease for $1. I mean, I guess I could go back and look how much 1% of our sales tax is, but it doesn't sound like $150 million or $140 million to even get all this stuff done. So I'm very nervous about it.
And Ms. Osowski, if your chief concern is that this, you know, isn't going to be able to fund itself, I can understand that. And when I was brought onto this project, I said, I'm not going to come into a project that we're going to have our board members be fundraising every year. I mean, that is not something that we're looking to do. We've been very careful to try and make sure that this thing is self-sufficient, that it doesn't require additional funds from the city. But I can tell you, if that is your main concern, moving us over to the new location gets us closer to our fundraising goal, gets us more money that we can use to build the building, build an endowment, and have a successful building. And at that point, less and less worry about, are there going to be operational costs that are going to have to be covered by the city? That's never been a discussion that we've had, that we would ever look for operational funds from the city.
And I appreciate your comment on that. Thank you. I guess also when we first started talking about the Children's Museum, it was just $10 million. And now we have infrastructure. We basically have land, you know, I mean, a lease for $1 it's basically free land use. And so it doesn't make me feel better, because it's not like you guys are out there. I mean, you guys have done better at fundraising, but it's not like this is additional funds that you raised. It's already more funds coming out of the taxpayer pocket that wasn't discussed at the beginning. So we started out at $10 million, and now, I mean, it just keeps getting more and more and more.
And we love that.
I'm sure you do. I would love that too. But I mean, I understand that you don't have to fundraise as much then, because you have additional taxpayer funds. And so, like, at what point does it stop? You know, $10 million wasn't good enough, so here, and I never said you said that, I apologize. But, $10 million wasn't going to get you guys where you needed to be. Now it's land, now it's, then it's infrastructure with our parking lots that we're paying. Part of that 11 point some million dollars, covered your guys' parking. I am just very concerned at how much more you're going to need, because there doesn't seem to be, no one seems to know at all, because I thought $10 million was more than enough to donate, and now we got infrastructure and land use, so.
So I don't know if there was a question there or not, but I think we're at, as good partners are, as you've upped the game, the city's upped the game to make sure this project gets done. There's no doubt that this and the sports complex is going to take some big thinking. It's going to take some forward-looking moves to move the community forward. And as we look at where the funds are coming from, I know we've gone over this in the past, we can go over it one more time. The JDA, Jobs Development Authority, was established in 1987. That's taken funds in over the years. They've done different things. Creating jobs was obviously the main priority, but that's also workforce development. It's shifted to that over the years. The Jobs Development Authority owned the Corporate Center building, owned LM Wind Power, owned the Cirrus building. We've shifted away from owning these office buildings, entity or buildings that really was not used by the public. They were used by entities that were doing, employing people and using those facilities for their business. So we've shifted away from that, realizing that workforce in the future is going to be quality of life and drawing people into your community. So those dollars are there because we've sold the Corporate Center 1, we've sold the Corporate Center 2, we've sold the Cirrus building, and we've sold the land that's out in the industrial park. So rather than taking that money and putting into more facilities where businesses are going to, try to create more jobs, we need to create workforce. And that's the shift that we took as a council and agreed to back in 2024, not only the economic development side of it, but when we did the budget in 2024. So that's where those dollars are coming from. They are Jobs Development Authority dollars that we're putting towards this along with the sales tax. So this is all rolling in the same direction, and there is no doubt that this is big. This is a huge deal. This needs big thinking. There is some risk here, but we're a community that's always bet on ourselves, and when we bet on ourselves, we win. So I've got no fear that we can move forward in a big way in the way that we're moving, but it's going to take some risk. We can't move forward with no risk. So I think we've done everything we can to mitigate that risk, and I appreciate the Children's Museum because that's another piece that mitigates the risk to this whole thing. Mitigates your risk. It brings the corridor to life. It mitigates the risk of workforce and trying to grow more workforce. So it's all coming together, as I would put it, in a beautiful way, and I'm pretty excited about it. So I know you're going to vote one way. I wish I had a vote. I don't get a vote, but
I guess I just have one more comment to make to everybody on the council. We have this project is huge, and we also have a big vote coming up in November about our property taxes. And I think we should show the citizens that they can, trust us with some of their money, and we make good financial decisions, not going over budget on projects and then taking a tax that was voted on and giving part of it to using those funds to give to the Children's Museum. I mean, this is a very important vote that's coming up in November, and I think we need to show our citizens that we can be fiscally responsible. So thank you.
Mayor, can I comment?
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Storstad. I think there's some confusion on the
I think
the sales
there's a little
tax, so
confusion.
there's two different sales tax, so maybe Ms. Storstad can help. I was going to do that, but you're the finance director, so why don't you go ahead?
Please comment too, Mayor. But I want to go back to your comments about the city paying $140 million on the aquatics and sports facility, and that's not what we're stating. So we have the $100 million bonding capacity that we've been very fiscally responsible with. We had the $10 million set aside, and then we're estimating those site infrastructure costs of $11 million. Anything above and beyond that, we're working through with the final design of the building to try to bring down those costs, working with funding partners to fill the gap. But the city's part of this would be that 110 plus the 11. What the mayor is referring to is the different sales tax. It's a 3/4% sales tax that people voted on. That is for the sports and aquatics facility. None of those dollars are allocated toward the Children's Museum. That would be coming from the economic development, a portion of that general sales tax. But I would offer up, if you want to come in and visit with Mike and I, and we can go through those cash flows and give you a little peace of mind on that bonding capacity.
All right, thank you. And I guess I was for the 140, I was adding in the $10 million that we gave to the Children's Museum already. I was talking about, in general, the entire project, which includes the aquatics, the turf, the infrastructure that we have to put out there, the land, the $10 million we gave to the Children's Museum. I'm talking about in general, not just that. So, so thank you.
All right, any further comments? We do have a motion to second. Mr. Veen, please.
Just very quickly, this action, I think, as you've talked about, by the council would have, financial benefit to the project, move you forward. Do you have any closer projection of when you think you might start construction?
As soon as we have the money.
Yeah, but you don't have a time frame
No, I
for
mean,
that yet.
fundraising
But you're
takes what
getting- I
fundraising
mean,
takes.
in your total package, you got operational funds, but a big piece of that is just the capital dollars for the project. And so getting to the funds for that capital should allow you to start construction because you'll never, I don't know if you can have all of your money in hand when you start construction with the idea that you would when you would be complete or ready to open. I just didn't know if you had any other
That's something that we're
accurate
constantly
projections.
analyzing and looking at. Obviously, there are different options for what we can do. We haven't landed on anything. We're still in a major fundraising push. We're looking for a lead donor still. If somebody wants the naming rights, we're looking for that. It really is just a function of when we have the money, we're ready.
And do you expect, granted this will be a board decision, but as you get the dollars for capital and you get there with your pledges and your financing for your pledges, do you expect to start construction when you have the capital met, or are you looking at waiting until you've got some endowment figures, just knowing that you've got some new revenue sources for operations now?
It's always tough. That's something that's in flux. We talk about this a lot. I couldn't give you an answer right now on where the board would go, but yeah, those are two things that we banter back and forth about a lot.
But you're getting closer. There's the
We
potential.
are. It's
as
getting
the momentum comes, that even in the spring, you could be closer, much closer, maybe even breaking ground.
That's
Some
our
of this.
hope. Our hope is to break ground in the spring.
Okay. And Miss Osowski, there's still the Osowski Children's Museum name could still be there.
Still an opportunity.
I'm an average citizen, middle class, so
Okay.
I don't have any donations, although my daughter has signed up to volunteer, I think, for an event in October. So
Wonderful.
I look forward
That's
to
awesome. Full steam
seeing
ahead
it
coming
also.
up. It's happening starting tomorrow. So if anybody else wants to volunteer, we're in need of more volunteers too.
All right.
So,
Well,
come check it out.
Breached 8 o'clock. We've got a motion and a second. So seeing no further discussion, this would be on the Children's Museum portion only, and incorporating them at the land at a $1 lease for the acreage that's been looked at. So with that, why don't we just, do we need a roll call vote? Why don't we do a roll call vote, Ms. Storstad?
All right, Osowski.
No.
Weigel.
Yes.
Berg. Yes. Lunsky.
Yes.
Friedels.
Yes.
Bean.
Yes.
And President Sandy. Passes.
All right, motion is, that passes 6-1 with Ms. Osowski dissenting. I believe that is all we've got, so we would look for item 3 for
I
adjournment.
move adjournment.
A motion to adjourn from Ms. Osowski and a second from everyone else. So all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. We are adjourned.